Get Ohio State their first touchdown of the night.
I'm really upset, disrespected. I love you. Don't say something about our team at Ohio State and Buckeye Nation.
And the snap and go back to throw. Has protection, goes deep, wide open. Over the middle is Franklin, who will just Sunday stroll it into the end zone.
Play action. Aller waits. End zone. Caught. Touchdown. Penn State. Khalil Dickens and the Nittany Lions cash in the takeaway.
Heinrich gets the snap. Back to throw. Has some time. Steps, throws, pass. Caught by Fedoni at the 20. He's to the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Nebraska. Thomas Fedoni leaped in the air, clutched the football, and then had open turf into the end zone.
Credit to Louisiana Tech. I thought they came to play. They thought they didn't back down. We'd seen them be down 17-3 against Florida International, come back, win the game. We saw them down 17 last week, come back, tie the game. So we knew that they'd battle all the way to the end.
Welcome in to the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla on a Monday. Getting your week started off right. DB, how are you this morning?
I'm good. It's my, working out the audio. I always wait to see if Devin Fuchs is going to come in.
I don't know what that noise means.
Oh, that's just the start to welcome usually. Welcome.
Listen, I feel juicy this morning. I don't know.
I don't know. It was a lot went on. A lot went on. I'm having a hard time, getting my sports season straight because I'm still in the base. I love baseball.
You're still in baseball mode,
and I'm still hoping the Astros will do me a solid and miss the playoffs. I'm hoping the Mariners can somehow sneak in there. My Rangers pick looks like a good pick unless they totally wet the bed here this week. Dodgers, it's always good to get a win over the lowly Giants. So,
you picked the Braves for the World Series, though, right?
Yeah. Braves to win the World Series beating the Mariners. So I need that to come in. We're, college hoops is getting started.
A month, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that. Yeah. I'm obviously happy about football. It's homecoming in high school for us, which nauseating.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just too many distractions, or what?
Just pageantry.
You're not in for the pageantry.
Just a bunch of nonsense.
You don't like all the floats and
the
dressing up
not the parade guy and the dressing up and where are we gonna eat and all that type of stuff. I watched an NFL team have 700 yards total offense, which
that's a lot.
You don't even do that in college.
No,
I have no idea how an NFL team, not named the Philadelphia Eagles, runs for over 350 yards. That was kind of ridiculous.
I have no idea how another NFL team allows that to happen to them.
Yeah, that is a total lack of pride.
Because at this point, and we can start here, I suppose. There's not a big enough talent gap anywhere in the NFL for that to happen.
You wouldn't think, especially on a day in which you watch the Cardinals beat the Cowboys. Right. So when you're talking, there's a certain amount of baseline talent, right?
That's how I feel, and it's a little different in the NBA sometimes because you have teams kind of actively trying to lose. The Broncos aren't actively trying to lose. This is not a team that is in the tank. They're paying a quarterback $250 million. Mm-hmm. They brought in a head coach that they thought could fix it.
Sounds like so much more when you say $250 million.
I know, that's why I do that. It sounds so much more dramatic, right? When you throw a B on there instead of the he's making $200 million or whatever. It sounds super dramatic when you call it $250 million. But this is not a team trying to lose, right?
That's unbelievable.
I just don't believe there's anywhere in the NFL where there's that big of a talent gap between 70 to 20.
Even the Giants looked competitive against the Niners.
Yeah.
Right.
The Niners separated and pulled away, and Brock Purdy didn't look super sharp, but it ends up being 30-12, and people are like, oh, that's a butt kicking.
Yeah.
And it's in the NFL, that kind of is the version of a butt kicking, right? If you get a double-digit line in the NFL, that's a big deal. You don't give very many of those.
I know it.
And this team went out and lost by 50.
This is on the heels of what the Chiefs did to
Right,
Bears,
but
but I'm not sure the Bears are interested emotionally in being
no
a serviceable franchise.
And even then, that's a little closer probably to a talent gap
But yeah,
issue
from what Kansas City brings to the table.
From what Kansas City brings to the table, from what Chicago doesn't bring to the table. There's a level of kind of incompetence there in Chicago that you wouldn't think would be there in Denver because you brought in a coach that had won a Super Bowl. You have this quarterback who's won a Super Bowl, been to another, and all of a sudden you're just getting waxed by the Dolphins. And listen, the Dolphins are good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, they're way good.
But they just
it's really about the only other team in the AFC I can stomach.
Outside of the
Steelers.
Yeah.
Maybe the Chargers a little bit.
Oh, it's because you're a big Justin Herbert guy.
Like if I was it's too early for that. That funny, Shane?
What's the question? What's the question?
Exactly. What's the question?
You can't deal with the Chiefs. You're not about that?
No.
I just like watching Mahomes.
Yeah, he's really, really good.
Like I don't root for him or anything like that.
He's sensational.
I had a soft spot for Andy Reid. I really wanted him to get a Super Bowl because I thought he was too good of a coach not to have one.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he's got that out of the way, it's just Mahomes is really fun to watch.
Yeah, he is amazing. But I like Mike McDaniel.
I do too. 49er guy,
I think he's good for the game. I think he's extremely refreshing.
I like,
and he's not a try hard weird. He's just
actually weird.
He's just actually different.
Yeah.
So he doesn't bother me. So, and I don't know what it is with the Chargers. I kind of just like their uniforms.
It's the powder baby blues.
And listen, they're harmless. So I don't. So it's like they're harmless. They won't hurt anyone.
That's how I can root for West Side and Miller North at the same time. Like Miller North's harmless.
Yeah. So it's like I think I'm gonna be okay if they're fine because they're not gonna win anything of substance.
Yeah.
Why Kirk Cousins didn't spike the ball yesterday before they panicked, I have no idea. But that's neither here nor there.
Worst situation: Josh McDaniels or Kirk Cousins?
I mean, Kirk may fly under the radar that he didn't kill the clock. I don't know why they were rushing.
Yeah.
I don't like you. What do you got? You get second and goal from the 5 and you live to fight another day. They wasted 10 seconds and they panicked. I don't know. There was some weird clock management going. I saw it in college football too.
Yeah.
Late. Arkansas, LSU, there's some weird clock management, and maybe this will or won't be a thing. But for a couple of years, I felt like clock management was really getting away from coaches.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know where it came from. Like it sort of seemed like it crept up out of nowhere.
But if you're Freeman, did you taking the timeout, or did you really not know you had 10?
Well, so he says he knew that.
No, I know what he said.
But he said he didn't want to take the penalty.
So I didn't read it I didn't listen to it like that. Do you know how I listened to it? Yeah, and I'm willing to.
Okay, yeah,
I listened to it as okay. Yeah, I knew. I don't think he cared so much about the penalty as much as not wanting Ohio State to get reset.
Yeah, I think
that's the prevailing sentiment I got.
That's fair. I was just reading the comments. I didn't listen to them, so I didn't.
So it's like
get to intimate tone and things like that. I'll say most times, especially on the goal line, you probably want all 11 on the field.
Yeah, I did not think Ohio State would have the stones to run it
there. I didn't either.
But I mean, when you're basically playing with a shade and a 5-tech,
yeah,
nothing in between. I mean,
probably okay.
Probably just run it.
Yeah, probably okay to just run there.
So it was this it's a strange weekend, but plenty to talk about.
So I was gonna kind of get into this later, but since we brought up sort of bewildering coaching decisions, I texted you yesterday. I was a little bit heated. I've been taking some shrapnel over some of my opinions.
Shots fired.
Our guy, Anthony Rizak, was at Notre Dame this weekend.
So are you mad about this?
I'm not mad that he was on a visit. Like, good for him. Like, go wherever people want you, right? But I quote tweeted a picture of him out there, and I said, it was on Saturday. I go, it's 6:07 p.m. and Nebraska still needs to get Anthony Rizak an offer. Which I thought was a totally reasonable
all
tweet.
the things that have happened this weekend. I get the late Sunday night text that you're not happy.
Well, so I started catching some strays.
Yeah.
Not really strays. They were aiming for me. That, you know better than 120 FBS coaches and we'll trust the recruiting services, and why doesn't he have any other offers?
Don't do that.
All this other stuff, right? It's like, the reason that and listen, I didn't say anything about Daniel Kaelin, right? People make that comparison because he's already in the Nebraska class. They're like, oh, you're overreacting to Kaelin having a bad year. It's his O-line, his receivers are hurt, whatever. People making excuses, right?
Wow.
And
here we go.
And so I would just like to point out that we just spent about 10 minutes talking about coaches doing idiotic things. And I'm not saying that Nebraska's coaching staff is doing that. We'll see how it all plays out. But you can't, out of one side of your mouth, tell me that coaches don't know what they're doing because they only got 10 guys on the field against Ohio State, and they don't know what they're doing because they can't manage the clock, and the Josh McDaniels doesn't know what he's doing because he's going for a field goal instead of going for a touchdown. And then out of the other side of your mouth, be like, how do you think you know better than the coaches?
I don't know.
Like, you can't, both things cannot be true. You cannot all on one side be like, hey, these coaches don't know what they're doing, and on the other side be like, they're infallible.
Yeah, no, I'm well aware.
People miss.
Oh, all the time. And listen, going through the last thing I'm doing is trusting recruiting services.
Yes.
So
because they list offers from people that aren't real offers, and they put stars on people for God knows why. And that isn't even getting into the fact that the quarterback evaluating process is deeply flawed.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because so much of it is based on non-actual football games.
You know, I'm in this recruiting thing.
Yes.
I look at evaluations. I obviously have a ton of experience with evaluation. I'm not listening to anybody that doesn't know that doesn't see it all the time, because it's just too easy to refute.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, you don't have to look any further. I mean, look at the in-state rankings. I mean, they're a joke.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
So it's like, I don't have any, like, I'm not going to be like, oh, the recruiting this. It's like, those guys see about 2 games a year, and they have their metrics, and that's fine. You live with it and you move on. But it certainly isn't. It's like Pro Football Focus, right?
Yeah.
That's what they do too.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean
that they're right all the time.
That they're right all the time. So I mean, I don't know. It's a weird hill for you to be climbing already this morning. But I know how it gets when you feel like you're being attacked.
It's not just that I feel like I'm being attacked, because like, if whatever, right? But it's that people can't seem to understand the position I'm coming from. That's what bothers me.
So I won't make I full disclosure, I did not bring this up. This is not me. But I will simply say this. You can't watch Nebraska play at the quarterback spot and with a straight face tell me that Rizak Anthony isn't at minimum the equivalent to Harburg coming out of high school.
Oh, he's way better than Harburg.
So, like, I'm just gonna I'll leave it at that.
He's way better than Harburg.
And I'll hang up and listen. Now, whether Nebraska would repeat that process again that they've gone through with Harburg, that's not for me to say. That's up to the university. But you can't tell me, you can't watch Nebraska these last 2 Saturdays and in the same vein be like, trust the recruiting services, because he's a significantly better high school player at the same stage in their career, doing it against better talent,
better competition.
And here's the other thing, and I'm going to get off of this too, because we all of a sudden drilled down into micro. At some point, stop using talent to make excuses or affirm what we think we know about people, because at this level, especially in high school, I do believe talent can transcend lots of things, and sometimes it's playing with other good players, sometimes it's not playing with such good players, because typically people can see, right? But the rationalizing for what we want to see, I think, is kind of hilarious. We just gotta because we want to be right as opposed to get it right. We like skew.
Sure.
If we're going apples to apples, let's go apples to apples. Just don't do the apples and oranges thing so you can defend something you like.
Don't call an apple an orange so you can defend something else.
That part is disingenuous.
What bothers me, honestly, the biggest thing that bothers me about this conversation is, listen, I have no idea what Anthony Rizak's going to be at the next level as a quarterback. Do I think he's a really
Have you ever met him?
No.
Okay. I'm just curious because, I mean, you've been on this for some months.
Listen, I have eyeballs. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I see it.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other people who I trust.
I'm not as.
No, I'm like militant about it.
Yeah.
And here's part of the reason why is I've seen too many times, and I promise we'll talk Nebraska football a lot today and the whole week. That's what we do. It's fine.
So what time did you send me that? Was that like 9:30?
It was like 8:30, I think. I was at dinner.
And you woke up still mad.
I've been mad all weekend.
Hey, my man. DK said Ravi making friends and influencing people today. Yeah, Ravi's on a roll.
Listen, the part that bothers me the most about this conversation isn't that people are like, hey, I've watched Anthony Rizak a bunch. I've watched other people a bunch. I just don't see what you see. If that's what people were saying to me, like, okay, but that's not what they're saying. They're saying, oh, coaches don't miss on evals. It's like we have literally an entire world of sports about coaches missing on evals. What did I send you last night? I was like, oh, I forget. Why don't you tell me which blue blood Steph Curry went to? Wait a second. His only offer was from Davidson? And he's a top 10 player in basketball history?
You do realize we're watching a real-life evaluation thing morph into something else real-time in Lincoln, right? Nebraska spent X amount of weeks watching the same thing, thinking something.
With Jeff Sims and Heinrich Harburg.
Correct.
Yes.
And it's turning into something else.
Yes, they can be in your room, right? I made this example a couple weeks ago. You watched Jimmy Garoppolo last night.
Yeah.
Does that look like a really good quarterback? Has he ever looked like a really good quarterback? Listen, even when he was the starter for the 49ers in the Super Bowl, I was like, you know how many times they threw it in the NFC Championship game? It was a fewer than Heinrich Harburg number of passing attempts.
Oh, man.
And he was in a room with Trey Lance, who can't get or stay on a football field to save his life, and Brock Purdy with one of the best offensive minds football has in Kyle Shanahan. All four of those people were in the same room, and that genius offensive mind, I'm not even saying that sarcastically. Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius.
No,
he really is.
He is.
And it's not just because I'm a 49ers fan. The stuff they do is incredible. But all four of those dudes were in the same room, and the football genius looks at it and goes, yeah, Brock Purdy, you're the worst of these three. That's a thing that happened.
So Coach Rhule said something to me on Saturday, and this was it was just a drop the mic moment.
Yeah.
So I'm out there. I'm whatever, right? Just kind of. I was waiting for Jess. We were gonna do this hit, and she was super busy. And she had told me 1:00. Mm-hmm. She's like, "Hey, let's record. Let's go live or whatever we were doing. I can't even remember if it was live. It's so much.
They're just like, just tell me when to start
talking. And I was still
talking.
traumatized from the Taylor Martinez interview that my mind was telling me no, but my body no. Wow. No. So when he walked out, Brent, his son was over. Mm-hmm. He like came over, like dapped me up, and I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks. So I was pretty pumped.
Yeah.
I was like, hey man, so we're shooting the breeze, and and he's just soaking it in because it's relatively early, right? And I said, hey, where's your dad? I said, is he coming out? He said, oh yeah, he's been out here. He said he's got the big I can't remember what he called the sweatshirt, but he just alluded to the fact it didn't fit.
Yeah,
because he's over there. And I mean, just blending in. He'd been out there, I don't know how long. And I don't think anybody really knew it was him.
Yeah.
Right? Because he had a hat on. He had his head pulled over his head. And he's getting a workout in. He's got his AirPods in. And like he's working up a sweat.
Yeah.
So I'm the only dude over there. So he just we stop and we talk. And so I said, I said, I thought I had this down pretty good. I said, you threw me a curveball this week in the pressers, right? Because I can normally get a good read on him, right? But clearly, me thinking that Sims
on the Sims Harburg thing,
thinking that Sims was going to get the nod, I was off, right? And he talked about the injury situation and how he was moving around and the difference between the two and commanding presence, and we're just talking about all these general terms. And he said, he said the quarterback thing is interesting. He's a quarterback it's like the one position that you kind of watch in and you don't know anything about these guys until they actually take the field.
Yeah, until you squeeze them.
I couldn't believe it. It was like all this other stuff that we've talked about for months, and he finally just dumbed it down to
you don't know anything till
you don't know anything.
You think you know everything, right?
Until it actually unfolds.
Until it's live action.
That's why I think they're hard to evaluate.
They are incredibly hard to evaluate. It goes back to the stupid Trevor Lawrence and Tua thing we were talking about last week. Trevor Lawrence has.
Hey, are you mad about that?
No, I'm fine.
It was shots fired at Ravi this weekend, so I get the fact you're a little
bristled up. Listen,
how about Shave just?
He's like, oh, we don't need to talk about Tua and Trevor again. It's like, okay, how many times do I have to say production and talent are not the same thing?
Yeah.
If Tua, with his other skills, had Trevor Lawrence's talent, he'd be the best quarterback in the league. And no one ever said Tua wasn't talented. He's not Trevor Lawrence talent.
Hey, so were you were in the StreamYard a couple of weeks ago? Was it Eric? Somebody was trying to convince me that emotion, it wasn't really, fortitude isn't the word, but he was trying to tell me something we said was a skill was an actual talent.
Yeah, like the mental part of the game.
And I'm kind of still thinking about that.
It's a skill. I'm like, talent are the physical things. I'm like, listen, it's a skill. It's a skill. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, shoot. It must be Monday, man. We're going to go ahead and buckle up.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Nebraska football. I'm fine. Listen, I'm probably going to yell a lot today, but it's all right. Trying to wake you up here on a Monday morning on the Damon Benning Show.
We got to talk quarterbacks,
with
don't
Ravi
we?
Lulla. Oh, we'll talk quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
We'll be right back in 5 minutes. We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back. 3 minutes.
And I go, this sounds better. He goes, I just need a yes in communication. Let me figure that out. Right? There's a ton of pictures he could use. He just told everybody is he can do it. Yeah, he gave it to me. I just was glad somebody was actually like he's trying to do it right. And he didn't go off with the year. And I think Ann shut it down.
We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime we protect the football, we have a chance to play good defense, to control the game on the ground. Again, I thought we were at 3:15 there early in the fourth quarter. Things go a little differently. I thought maybe we'd get a couple more. Those two runs called back might have been a 400, running for 400, 450. That's kind of day you'd like to have out there. But I think he did a good job. He executed the play calls. Some things he didn't. Some things he didn't execute. So the great thing about Heinrich is he's trying to get better. We're coaching him through it. But for the most part, I thought he managed the game pretty well. But there's, he, like all of us, like me, all of us have to continue to get better.
Watch on my wrist, but I want that diamond. Talk crazy when I pull up in sight. Mile high, bring that back with some stylish. Glow, talk big t-shirt, Billy. Watch on my
It is 7:29 a.m. on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
It's just setting the world ablaze already as one Ravi Lulla.
I didn't do anything. I've just got a lot of big feelings, and I'd like to talk about them.
Are you having a moment?
Nah, I'm having like a whole weekend, if we're being honest.
Oh, shoot.
No, listen, it's let's talk about quarterbacks. We haven't really done that yet today. Let's get to the Nebraska quarterback situation a little bit. Coach Rhule was talking about Harburg there, and I'm really interested to see how this week plays out, right? Because kind of going into, what I went into last segment,
the meltdown.
I wouldn't call it a meltdown.
No, it was fine. Strong opinions.
Yeah,
and it's not like we're not going to talk quarterback all week.
Right, because that's it's not even the elephant in the room. It's just the biggest topic. And you're right in the sense that they obviously thought one thing about their quarterback situation.
And maybe still do.
Yeah, and maybe they still do, yeah. But I still think there has to have been a gap between what Haarberg was showing in practice and what he has shown in games. I also probably believe that there's a gap between what Sims was doing in practice and what he's shown so far. Now, again, the contexts are different. That's kind of why I wanted to see Sims this week. So we had more of a apples to apples comparison between the two quarterbacks. Obviously, he wasn't in a position to do that physically.
Yeah, he did not look great.
No.
Running around.
No, he did not look super comfortable.
Right. So,
and that kind of lends me to think that he's not going to probably play this week.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's fair. I mean, that's just me.
Because I do. Play, right? I mean, you can have your little McGriddle sandwich from me.
Okay.
But remember, full disclosure was health withstanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I said health withstanding.
Yeah.
So
the reason I said I thought Haarberg was going to start was because the way he answered that question made me believe Sims wasn't healthy.
So he just flat out wasn't telling the truth.
No, I think he was.
He said, I guess we're good.
But he also said, "Ooh, I wouldn't say 100%."
Yeah.
That's where I was like, yeah, he's not ready.
Yeah, so that's the curveball he threw me. I totally misread that.
Yeah. I heard that and I go, he's playing that a little close to the vest, but he also doesn't want to lie to you straight up. Just be like, yeah, he's 100%. You know, like
I could see it that way now.
Yeah, when I heard it, as soon as I heard that, I go, yeah, he's not playing.
Was that a little too confident in our relationship?
I don't think maybe. I thought he said it to you specifically,
right?
You know, it's not like he called you. It's like, yeah,
I wish you could have seen. I wish you could have seen how he looked at me when he said, "He goes, here's the thing with quarterbacks, you don't know anything until they get out there."
Yes,
and I just was like, "Why does that sound so simple?" And I clearly know it.
Yeah,
but when you say it, I'm like thinking.
What's the
what does that mean? And listen, I've seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
7-on-7 guys, quarterbacks I want in crunch time, quarterbacks I don't want in crunch time.
Yeah.
Guys that we call gamers, and sometimes we say that and we minimize the whole talent thing.
Sure.
Like these things have been talked about for years.
Yes.
Right.
There's a reason we've talked about them for years.
It's a thing.
Eval is so hard.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who is Dak Prescott? Is Dak Prescott a choker? I don't know.
It seems like he might be.
Oh, heck, careful now. We got a long season.
I said might. We've had a long season. We've also had, 8 years of this?
Like, is Brocktober a winner? Like, what happens in September?
I mean, he's undefeated in September now, too. So
oh, wow.
That's what happens in September. I mean, what do you want me to say?
What's the question?
Yeah, what's
I just finished telling you.
What's the question?
What's the question?
Like,
Eric?
What's Russell Wilson's problem?
He's bad at football now. I don't know when it happened, but he's bad at football now.
Wow.
I don't know when. I don't know how. I don't know why. But he's bad at football now.
Can I say this and know that it's not revisionist history? Because I said this when he wasn't coaching.
Okay.
Sean Payton gets an awful lot of love. Remember when we were talking about giving up draft picks and stuff for his coaching services?
He's basically Mike McCarthy.
He's Mike McCarthy.
Yeah. Their records are incredibly similar. They both have won Super Bowl. They both were playing with one of the best quarterbacks of their era.
Right. This was when he was unemployed.
Yeah. No, I get it. And people killed the Cowboys for hiring McCarthy, and they would have murdered to be able to hire Sean Payton.
For as much as we hate on Dak, McCarthy rolls out and wins double-digit games last year, and we're like, yeah, but. Right? I'm pretty sure, guys, he's okay coaching, okay? Like, can we get –
he wouldn't be my first choice, but yeah.
But if Dak is so mid, then how does McCarthy pull off double digits?
That's fair. It's a fair point.
Right? That's the whole apples to apples thing. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But the quarterback thing,
it's one of the simple versus easy things, right? You say it and it's really simple. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And it's not even easy to understand.
Are we going to act like we didn't just watch Jordan Love for 3 quarters yesterday? I mean, that was arguably going to be one of the worst home duds ever for the Packers.
Yeah.
And then the fourth quarter happened.
Yeah. And it's like totally different people.
Now, people will hate on Jameis and the Derek Carr thing, but Jameis played well, I felt like.
He's played low-key well for the last couple of years in that backup role, and maybe that's all he'll ever be, and that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who he's going to start for. But.
No, I don't either. Like, he's probably better than the Justin Fields of the world, but he doesn't make Chicago good.
So I feel bad for Justin Fields because that's a really poorly
terrible
run
situation.
Franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
from top to bottom. It's a bad situation.
They're in big trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, they may get the first pick again, and that's competing with a team that's tanking.
Yeah.
Right.
They
at least the Cardinals are competitive.
And the Cardinals wanted to be bad this year, it seemed like. And they're still competitive. The Bears wanted to be good, and they are eating it. It's might be the worst organization in football right now.
Yeah.
The Bears.
In terms of top to bottom dysfunction.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in big trouble.
Even more so than the Broncos?
At least, so the right now I'd take the Broncos over the Bears.
Yeah, I would for sure. I don't think the ownership
at least Peyton has history of success.
Of being a decent football coach, right? Of having, I mean, not more than decent, right? I don't want to sell him short, even though we're, comparing him to Mike McCarthy, so people have a better.
But that's fair, though.
No, it is a fair comparison. But I think when people hear you, it's like when you compare a quarterback to Kirk Cousins. People think it's an insult, but it's not really. Yeah. Right? It's, this is the proper context.
At least for me.
Right, because Kirk Cousins is a top 12 quarterback in the league.
How much of a genius do I look like when they're 2-1 right now? And I said, man, I want to like the Colts because I like their roster.
But you don't like Anthony Richardson.
I just can't get behind the whole Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson thing.
Yeah.
So what I say, I was like, yeah, I'm not going there with the Colts.
Right. Well, and you also
it's early, but maybe I should have went there with the Colts.
Maybe should have went there with the Colts.
That's why everybody listens to me because I bat 1,000. Yeah, not really.
That's why
I wanted to like him.
Yeah, that's why I asked you about it because you're like, I'm kind of like the Colts, and I go, Anthony Richardson does not seem like one of your dudes.
No,
but you like the rest of the roster.
Yeah,
so you were hoping
he may be good.
You were hoping he'd be good. So
so here's the funny thing. You talk about like backtracking.
Mm-hmm.
I had this conversation with another on-air talent when Richardson was drafted.
Yeah.
And he gave me it was kind of hyperbole.
Okay.
But I wasn't mad at him because he's generally a nice guy. And I was like, that is not the biggest reach at the quarterback spot in whatever it was he said. So I actually found myself trying to defend Anthony Richardson relative to who has been,
even though
I was like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have done that.
I saw Christian Ponder get drafted like 7th once. So.
That whole Lockett. Where do you want to start in that draft class?
Jake Locker.
Did I say Lockett?
He said Lockett. Yeah, that's all right. I know what you meant.
There's so many of them. Locker. That whole quarterback class was bad, and everybody was moving up to get mids.
I watched Christian Ponder for 4 years and couldn't believe he was a first-round quarterback.
Dude, I'm like, yeah.
Listen, people miss sometimes. All right. NFL
and it's early. It's early.
It's
early. It's still they're still only 2-1.
Maybe don't recruit.
Even the Texans have a win.
Even the Texans have a win. Not as many as the 49ers. We got more of Benning and Lulla coming up next.
Wow.
The show will be back in 4 minutes. show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Yeah, no, when we came back in, he got wrapped. I think he felt something. He felt tight, and I think he was maybe cramping a little bit at the end. So, we went ahead and went to Chuba there to finish the game out. So I think had we not had the rain delay, conceivably he would have finished. Just when he came in, he just tightened up.
Where are you in the street?
We've got some microphone issues apparently.
Yeah, we're still hot.
Hot. Every time I get in the stream, there's an echo.
Hot.
Plus, I know you like being on camera so much. I wanted you to get the attention.
Hey, so Shane, can I kick myself out?
No, we need somebody on camera. I'm going to set up the show because I should have done that 45 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Coming up at 8 o'clock, we'll have Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald, as we do every Monday. At 9, we will have Matt Brown from The Athletic to talk about the college football landscape from a national perspective. And at 9:45 to wrap up the show, we'll have Hub Arkush from Pro Football Weekly.
Not to be confused with Arkush.
Well, I'm just trying to go with regional.
You're just here so you won't get fined?
Yeah, I'm sure I won't get fined.
You're the regional dialect? Is that where you were
I was
going?
trying to get the proper regional pronunciations. Maybe I missed. All right. I forgot to ask Shane how to pronounce it before I started doing the lineup, so I just rolled with it. All right.
What's the question? I just finished telling you.
What's the question?
It's Arkush.
Arkush. There we go.
What are you on delay?
What's the question? I just finished telling you.
Boy,
so
he was not happy.
That's the
Yeah, but
lineup
it was great though.
here today. You can listen to us on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, on ESPN Tri-Cities, on Twitter, YouTube, Hurrdat Sports Radio, wherever you want to find us.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
We're there. We're everywhere.
It's a lot.
We're statewide, DB.
Yeah, I like it.
We are
I like it
statewide.
because we continue to talk quarterbacks.
Listen, quarterback, it's an important position.
Hey, did you not read into the fact it was referred to as a situation? Our situation? I was like, oh boy. Oh boy,
if you've got
it's going to jump off from Michigan because now everybody gets to put their thought process. You can't just roll that guy out there against Michigan without any reps.
That's what I asked you, and you're like, yeah, that's not a big deal. And I was like, okay.
It's not.
Well, he's got the experience at Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah, like
that's what makes it not a big deal.
Yeah,
because if Harburg was in the exact opposite position, right? Let's say Harburg was the starter.
Now, but I did concede. I said, now if you're talking about
this year,
if you want to build some confidence,
yes, that's what I don't feel good about.
Oh, okay.
If it's a Jeff, it's not because he's played Florida State, Clemson, Miami, whoever, right? Like he's done that part of the job. So
you just want to get him feeling good.
The only thing he's experienced so far this year has been failure.
Yeah,
that's not the kind of place I want.
So he didn't go to bed Saturday night feeling good about taking the loss to Minnesota after Northwestern scored 21 unanswered?
I would imagine not.
How about that's got to be, and I know that they've struggled in some of their non-cons under Fleck.
The Northwestern.
But that may be the worst loss since he's been there. Given you gave up 21 unanswered.
Yeah, considering where you were in the game, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they just drug you down into the mud and you could never get out.
Yeah.
You had the lead, you were good to go, and then you give up 21 unanswered to lose that game to one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country this year, right? Like that's not a hot take. Is it? I mean, I'm not exaggerating there, am I?
No, that is definitely not a hot take.
So yeah, that's as bad of a loss as PJ Fleck has probably taken at Minnesota. It might be the worst conference loss anybody will take this year.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's going to be up there.
I would reserve judgment until our season's over. You realize we were 3 of 11 on third down against Louisiana Tech.
I certainly do. Listen, I'm not saying there won't be a worse one, but it's going to be in the
They're
conversation.
3 of 11 though.
That's bad.
It's not good.
You would like that to be closer to 5 of 11, 6 of 11?
You want to be
pretty close to 50%.
Yeah, you
right?
want to be about 45%.
And you want to keep people just under like a third.
Yeah, and they were actually really good, 25% stop rate. I think Louisiana Tech was 3 of 12.
Yes, I believe that's right.
That turns out to be 1 of 4, right?
Yeah, which is 25%. That's a good number. You can live with that.
Do you know what? I feel pretty good about that math for once.
Look at you doing math stuff.
Well, I had to count in the booth Saturday.
Were you like counting on your fingers?
Dude, I couldn't do the 45-yard line to the 35. First, I said they need another 20 yards. And then I go, wait.
Which is right.
And I go, no. I said, fudge. I need all 10 fingers.
You're
and
like,
toes.
let me take my shoes off and do the math.
And in vintage Greg Sharp fashion, he goes, no, you were right.
You were right the first
you
time.
can spare the fingers and toes. And I was like,
It happens to Nebraska
all the time.
You got to watch out. DB wears sandals in the press box
I'm
to
like,
make sure he can count all the
When I usually just kind of give a non-verbal to Ben, and he like can
Gives you the
add
number?
like he can add fast.
He does
I'm
the
like,
quick math.
I like switch my face up. I'm like, is that right? Is that right? And he'll thumbs up, thumbs down. He's very good too. He'll write stuff down for me.
Yeah.
And he's a very good sticky note tosser. Like, I bet he's really good at cornhole. Like, he can, if you're watching us on camera, he can like jot stuff down, and he goes. And it lands perfect every time. And he has to skip it over Greg.
That's incredible.
It really is.
That's
I admire that talent.
I would watch a live feed if you guys do the broadcast.
Dude, it's a circus.
I know you would hate it because you don't like being on camera.
It's so funny because I have fun.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea of it, right? Sports are supposed to be fun.
We were gonna tag team the Taylor Martinez interview in the pregame.
Yeah.
Man, they came in with an entourage, and I looked at Ben and I go, yeah, I think I'm gonna sit this one out. It's a lot going on. And he was just cool. He's like, oh, no problem.
You're like, it's going to be a no from me, dog.
Dude, and like the interview ran long too. So
Really?
it was, oh yeah, we had to do some
How many
serious.
people are we talking about when we say entourage?
6 maybe.
Okay, that's a grip of people.
Yeah, 6.
Okay. Yeah.
Big, a lot of personalities.
A lot going on there.
Yeah. It's a fantastic studio, but not that big.
It's a little bit
like,
space.
yeah, I said, go sit in the corner. That's where they put all the bad kids. Let's talk quarterbacks.
You're used to it.
Right? Nobody puts baby in the corner.
But DB, that's
yeah. I'll see you over there.
Let's get to Brett on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. He wants to talk a little bit high school football, maybe a little Nebraska. Brett, what's going on, man?
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Hey, Damon,
what's up?
When we come up there to Omaha, let's not put 70 on us, please. That would
Well,
be
listen,
awesome.
so full disclosure, Ravi, would you like to tell Brett what I'm watching currently?
Yeah, he's watching some game film here.
This is North Platte, Grand Island.
Well, if you watch North Platte Kearney, I will say the two best kept secrets in state are their running back, Molina,
Stud.
and that quarterback. Dude, that quarterback throws, Griffin Novacek throws the best ball I've seen in high school football in a long time.
So
And
we talked
he knows how to run the option.
we talked to Coach Cool Friday.
Yeah.
And we talked about Novi and Molina. That's a long line of Molinas, man. And they've all been good. Like I think he was serious when he said their family basically has been inducted into the High School Hall of Fame. That's
probably.
He's a stud too. So we watched them. Yeah. That was the first game I watched. I was watching it during the rain delay Saturday in the booth because I thought Kearney would give us a good preview because they play an odd front like we do. But they did so many different things. Like I'm like, I don't know how much of this is portable, but I like you guys at the quarterback spot.
See, I feel like maybe we're a little afraid of contact when we run the ball with quarterback spot because he's a little undersized. But
he's according to the roster, he's grown a little bit. Like he's 15 pounds bigger than last year. Yeah. And
I don't know if you knew this. Our fullback, his dad played at Nebraska.
Really?
That's
I only know numbers. I know he's fast.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Number 6.
He's fast.
Number 6. His dad was Matt Albertson. Yeah, played at Nebraska. But I was going to ask about just my pleading of don't put a 70 spot up when we come up there.
Lord.
On Nebraska, I think seen a little bit of a change this last couple weeks in offensive philosophy.
Yeah.
And in offensive philosophy, like running the option, getting more like power sets. Do you see that evolution? And I don't know if Satterfield's really done this, but maybe getting back to what Osborne and Solich did with when you run that speed option, getting that fullback trap or the play action where you get the little tight end pop over the top.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen that, but the thing that worries me with moving on into our schedule is we haven't seen a lot of complement plays off of like the option, off of the toss play. Do you see that as like maybe Satterfield has that stuff in his back pocket and he doesn't want to show it? Or do you think that's just something where they're not trusting our quarterback and our offensive line to make those plays and those reads correctly?
Great question. I appreciate the call, Brett. I think so. It's a little bit of both. I think the complementary pieces are coming.
Yeah.
And I do think they kind of found something. And I was all in my feels during the broadcast. I'm just glad Greg put up with me because I was just craving 2-back downhill run game.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all I wanted to see because I watched Louisiana Tech warm up and you watch them on film and I just felt like they move so much that you could catch them once you get downhill
in some spots.
And so when Nebraska got into that rhythm, it was just like a thing of beauty. I mean, you're just basically talking about eye right and eye left. I mean, there was nothing real fancy to it. And I do think if you want to keep teams honest, because now there's tape. So we're trending, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole coincidence, fluke, trending, see 3 in a row. So you need the pet pieces. You need inside run game off of the option look. And you need maturation in the passing game.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Because even the one that Harburg housed clearly should have pitched it, right? He's out on the perimeter, but he was so decisive, like getting downhill.
And that's more important
Yeah.
than making the right read.
Exactly.
Decisiveness is more important than getting it right.
As our head coach says, solve problems with aggression.
Yeah.
Harburg was so aggressive getting downhill
that it worked.
He was on top of you before you knew what happened.
Coming up next, we got Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McEwen.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McEwen.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McEwen.
Jeff was probably able to go with limited in terms of what he can do. He really run football. He did come in for one play, high risk signaling. He should by the time Jeff went in at the end, Jeff was probably tight there. His ankle was being up all day. Didn't see him having him go re-injure that. But I think Jeff's an excellent player. He played 2 really tough teams on the road. And I thought, a lot of things that happened where it was just going to lump on him. Some of those things weren't his fault. We're going to get them all ready to play and play guys that we think has the best chance.
Kicking off hour number 2 on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We've got our friend Sam McKewon joining us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Sam, how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. Sam, before we get to hashtag GBR, are the Chicago Bears the worst run franchise in the NFL?
Yeah. Right now. I don't know. I mean, the GM, I'm not saying the GM can't turn it around. Ryan Poles effectively inherited the situation with the quarterback. And I'm not trying to put it all on Justin Fields. I'm just saying that Justin Fields and what the Bears are even trying to do, that they're just not, it doesn't work together. So hopefully Fields is able to find a situation that suits him and a staff that, can help him be the best player he wants to be. Although, hey, Poles hired this coach, and I have a colleague who calls him Eberflub. And that's not that's pretty good if you ask me. So there's a lot of Bears fans in the media, and I threw something out there. Yes, this is the worst they've been in my lifetime, and this is really the only team I really truly root for. Where like that's I'm paying attention every week, and I watch the first half, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. You got guys celebrating false start penalties on the Chiefs as if that was an accomplishment. Just all kinds of stuff. I mean, they're just a silly bad team. Their defensive coordinator, resigned last week for inappropriate behavior. Somebody else, some other separate person, broke into Hallis Hall and stole a bunch of stuff. It's a bad situation, and they need a new stadium. I'll tell you that. They need a stadium that's got a cover on it. They need a half dome. Otherwise, they're not going to attract a quarterback who wants to play in Chicago unless they get that.
Sam, let's move over to Nebraska. Obviously, the $1 million question is, what do you do with the quarterback spot heading into Michigan? As we probably won't have an answer until, I would guess, Saturday on that. What are some of the things that you're kind of thinking about and evaluating as you try and figure out who that should be against Michigan?
Well, you have a reasonably hot hand in Harburg, at least as a runner. Do you want to put that on the bench for a guy that would be coming in cold? I mean, Jeff Sims has only played one play in the last 2 weeks, and he didn't look 100% while he was running it. Same time, can you lose your job because you got banged up late in the Colorado game? Harburg didn't have to experience Minnesota and Colorado in that same way, and so. I think you probably roll with Harburg if he's healthy. That said, Michigan changes the calculus. If you were playing Purdue this week, I think you'd be like, oh, let's see what happens. I think with Michigan, you have to kind of expect that they're going to come in and make things a lot harder for Nebraska than Nebraska's had even the last 2 weeks. Michigan's got the best statistical defense in the country. I don't know if it's actually the best. I suspect Ohio State is, but Michigan is very good. So I'd say Harburg, he has a hot hand. Let's see how he runs the option. Let's see if he's able to get some things done there. Jeff Sims at the same time, you never know. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do. I'm not sure that either quarterback's going to win them the game, if that makes sense.
Sam, which one of these numbers is most close, like what it's going these stats going to be for Nebraska the next couple of weeks? The 13.4 yards per completion, or the completion percentage around 50% for Harburg at only coming off of 8 of 17 again this weekend? Can they get chunks without being efficient, or will they have to be more efficient?
Good question. I think that in theory they could get both efficiency and chunk play. I think that
hard to make a living that way.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't say they were a good passing team. I'm just saying that what they've been doing the last couple of weeks is in theory something they could continue. Now they rank 126th nationally in pass attempts, last among all power conference teams, 4 behind Rutgers that just played Michigan. Nebraska, I would love to see a more controlled short to intermediate passing game that involves, receivers getting open, trying to run after the catch. They have not used the wide receiver short screen passing game very much yet at all. That just hasn't been a staple of what they're doing. They haven't had a lot of, you know what I'm talking about, bubble screens and smoke screens. They just haven't used that very much. Now they could be holding it back for Michigan. My sense is Michigan's gonna press cover a lot, so I don't know that those plays will work quite as easily. A lot of the teams they played up to this point have done those things too. They're just not really afraid of Nebraska's receivers, so I think they're willing to just kind of play right up in their face mask. I think there's a chance to get a little bit more efficient. I just don't think it's a classically efficient passing team. Marcus Satterfield came from South Carolina, where I think last year they conceded 67% of their passes, and Rattler's somewhere above 70 right now. And he's come to a school where A, they don't have a passer as good as Spencer Rattler, and B, they don't have as many good skill players. And so he has a tough job right now. I think he's handled the press conferences pretty well. They're doing what they can, I think, to boost the offense. Then you come to this week, and this week could be rough. And then you get past this week, and then we're going to see more about what they can really be the rest of the season. Until they play Iowa at the end, and then it's going to get rough again. So Michigan is not the easiest team to play at this moment, but you play the hand you're dealt.
Sam, before we kind of look ahead to Michigan too much, I do want to ask you about the way the Louisiana Tech game played out. Are you leaning more towards that Nebraska kind of wore them down and broke the dam and was able to finally break through in the second half? Or do you see that more as, hey, they weren't totally committed to the style of football they needed to play in the first half to be successful offensively, and in the second half they really leaned into it? Is there one of those two ways that you kind of view that the game through?
I probably put the needle a little bit more toward the second one. But I think one thing that Nebraska fans will have to get used to with this staff is I don't think they go into a halftime or a tie ball game to worry. I think their framework is if we're tied or we're ahead going into the fourth, we like our chances. Now maybe that changes against Michigan. Again, that's the exception, but I don't think they're all that worried about that. I'm sure they would have loved to have been up 24-7. I don't know that there was an opportunity to be up that much, but I'm sure they would love that. But I don't think they're that worried about it. They come out in the second half. They had what amounted to, I don't even know what you want to call it, 22 personnel, 22 and a half, because Prohaska is in between the tackle and the tight end. And they ran the same play over and over. Prohaska and Lindenmeyer blocked down. Piper comes around on a pole, and Anthony Grant's behind the whole thing, and they did it over and over. And I don't think they were real, fancy about it or subtle about it. That's what they did. And they came out and ran power football, and they went right down the field. And then they ran the option some, and they went right down the field. Louisiana Tech didn't know how to defend it. I don't know why they didn't, but they didn't. And they probably could have racked up more yards and points doing that. But I feel like they were holding some stuff back. I thought that the pass rush against Louisiana Tech was very vanilla, and they held stuff back. They didn't get to him. That I recall, they didn't get a sack on him. They probably could have, but I think they felt like they knew what they wanted to do against this team, and they were able to come away with a win. I think we'll see more against Michigan, maybe some offensive plays that we haven't seen, and I think certainly more aggressive defensively, although that's a risk against Michigan. Michigan's got pretty good receivers.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud because 2 weeks ago I was having to explain why he should even be playing, but man, can you? I don't feel super optimistic about Grant being able to shoulder the load for too long without some help. Who's the next most viable candidate in over the long haul? And how would Nebraska have to run it to allow that to happen?
And I don't know. I think Emmett Johnson was the second guy in. And then there's Quentin Ives. And I know they're high on Quentin Ives. I know they are.
Yeah, I think with that,
he's doing.
I think with that, Sam, I think it's pass protection because it's complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure it out too, like real time. You'd have to play in such a way to protect the young guys in terms of pass pro.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously pass protection is enormously important. Probably the thing they lost with Ramir Johnson that hurt them the most. Yep. When you say the word complicated, and if it's complicated for you, it's complicated for them. So, well, seriously, I mean, like you're in a third person, you're watching it, and you know the game inside and out.
It's tough.
And they're in 18, and they're watching it from the first person, which is harder. That's I mean, we stand up there and say, "Oh, they should have done this." Well, I'm not actually playing, so. It's really hard. And if that's the case, then they've got to figure out what to do to make it a little bit easier. I agree that Anthony Grant's he's gonna take a lot of physical punishment in the Big Ten if this is the way they go.
And he's a punishing runner, right? Like he's not a guy that takes the high road. Like he's gonna try to give it to you.
Yeah, I think Anthony had a real nice game, and yes, he is gonna try to give it to you and physically hit you. Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives. Who after that? I'm not sure that Trevin Lubin. Can you pull Janiron Bonner in there, and can he be a pass pro guy and save a few snaps for Anthony Grant? It's just hard to tell exactly how they're going to go. They probably need to get to a bye week to figure it all out, but they got 2 games to play.
You guys, for some reason, man, I just think this game will be closer than the experts think. I just do. I watched Michigan a ton. We watched them against Rutgers, and from an intricacy standpoint, it's pretty much what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Loveland's a fantastic tight end. He had his coming out party against Nebraska a year ago, and I like Morgan outside the numbers, but I don't know. I just don't think they're going to stress Tony White and those guys defensively. I don't know. I got a weird good feeling about the competitiveness in this game.
I think it could be very competitive. Michigan's another team that's not worried. They're just not worried. If they go into the fourth quarter and it's 14-10, they're not worried. They nearly lost to Illinois last year.
I wonder why they can't get Edwards going.
Well, I think he's run the ball quite a bit. They use him a lot in the pass game, and he's got a few there. And again, what I would say is they're holding stuff back. They're not going to show everything. They have 2 games this season where they're going to be on the field with equally talented teams, and they're going to put everything they can into those 2 games. And Penn State is just as good. This year, Penn State's just as good as Ohio State. And so they have to put a lot into 2 games. It's their whole season. They want to play for the national championship. I think they absolutely could play for the national title this year. And so I don't think they've shown very much. I mean, certainly they didn't show it with the three teams that they played to start the season. And again, I think you get a pretty good sense of Michigan's going to beat Rutgers eventually. So you don't have to unload all of your best stuff. I think the same thing with Nebraska. I think Michigan could be up, 14-8 or 9 or 10 going into the fourth quarter and be like, we're going to win the game. And we're not all that worried about what it looks like. We have to win 2 games this season where we know we're going to have to do everything we can to win them. And that's what we're going to do. And I think, then you watch Michigan play Ohio State and you're like, where the hell has this team been all year? Well, they've been holding the hell back. And I think that's what you're going to see Saturday. A team that a team that probably allows Nebraska to hang around if Nebraska's willing to hang around, but simultaneously is just physically superior.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, I have been wondering about the viability of a Nebraska offense that is, maybe passing the ball 12 to 15 times a game and predicating much of their running game around the QB run. If you're talking 20 carries a game for Harburg or Sims or whoever it is, as you kind of look through the Big Ten schedule and a Big Ten West that has not set the world on fire by any means, how viable do you think an offense that looks like that could be?
Well, it can, if you can run the option and you could beat a team, you can make a team pay for putting all those guys in the box and having their corners up tight, then I think it's viable. You've got to find a way to beat your opponent when your opponent is like, pressing you or up in your grill. And the option's one way of doing it. Throwing it behind them's another way. But, a lot of these teams that'll throw the ball 40 times, they have good enough receivers to scare the opposing defense. And so they're like, we're going to back off you here. We'll play off, and we'll let you throw these little 2-yard passes and things like that. Nebraska doesn't get a lot of that treatment. Nebraska, it's more, why don't you beat us here? Go ahead and here you go. Go deep. And, Nebraska's not really been able to do that. The only long pass I think they've hit that was like in the air more than 30 yards was that trick play in the first game of the year. And they had to use a trick play in order to complete that pass. So, I think that's part of the challenge. Now, if you can run the option, you can quarterback run, that's good. At times, Saturday, Louisiana Tech had 9 guys in the box and they ran the ball anyway and they popped some runs. That can happen too. So that's probably the way Nebraska's going to have to go. I don't know. It's certainly not what they want to do. I mean, they would love to have Xavier Betts right now streaking behind the defense, but they don't. So they have to do the best they can with what they have.
Sam, you mentioned
he made it sound like I was a kid and I didn't get the toy I wanted.
Well, it's true. I mean, I don't know what, the first play of the game, the first play of the game.
The shot play where they had to eat it?
Yeah, well, Malachi Coleman and Tommy Hill come out. Now, I don't know if Louisiana Tech's paying attention or not, but we're sitting up there in the press box, and I'm like, Malachi Coleman and Tommy Hill are in the game. They're going to go deep. Like, I don't know what else. I mean, I don't know why else those guys would be out there. They haven't thrown them a little 4-yard stop. Well, and maybe they should. I mean, give Tommy Hill the ball. Get him the ball. I mean, what is he out there to do? You know what I mean? Like, just give him the ball.
Oh, listen, they tried to run the reverse to him, and the fans were mad. It was like, why don't you call that play? It's like, they can't win for losing.
Well, it's just like, give him the ball. Or just give him the ball. Or, like, throw him a little hitch route and let him run. Like, the poor guy goes out there and he runs, 70 yards, and it's just, and Malachi, at some point you just got to throw somebody the ball and let them see if they could do something. Let them feel the ball in their hands and carry it a little and get the blood flowing. So anyway, they do that on the first play of the game and it doesn't work, and then those guys are gone. And so they're trying, but at the same time, it's just hard. I think it's really hard to play receiver at the collegiate level. I think they're trying to figure out what they can do. They're doing this with a young quarterback at the same time who's doing this for the first time. It's a tough hand. And, 2 years from now, I'm sure they'll look back on it and go, boy, that was a tough hand. Aren't we glad we have a better hand now? And that could be with Harburg as a senior quarterback starting. But at this moment, this is all kind of tough to do, and they're trying to do the best they can.
Hey, Sam, how much of it do you think your sphere of influence, right, around a lot of people, do you think the sentiment is, well, I'm not sure we can win with this guy either, but he sure seems better than what I saw earlier? Because I don't get the sense Nebraska fans are feeling good about Harburg either.
Well, the rank and file Nebraska fan just sees a guy that's running for touchdowns and running long runs, and they like that. So I think that, you know, that's relative. I think when you're a higher level thinker. And so I think you're thinking not really about, well, what had happened in this tiny sample size against Louisiana Tech, but you're thinking about, okay, you know, 5-6 weeks from now, what is this going to look like? And what will we have said? And I get all that. And yeah, I think that fan is in a wait and see mode a little bit, although pleased with what Harburg's trying to get done and his toughness. And, you know, he seems like a likable guy, and, you know, he doesn't, all those things. And so, sure, you know, I think there's some of that there. You know, people were awfully hard on Taylor and Adrian Martinez in their time here. You'd take both of them right now, quite a bit. So, you know, and that's no knock on Harburg. He's just at the beginning of something. And yeah, like, I think Sims made the mistakes he made, so I think people are a little leery about him going back into the game. They don't want to see turnovers. I think for the most part, people just kind of hold their breath when Nebraska has the ball on offense a little bit. The defense gives them a lot of joy. They kind of know what they're going to see, and they know that it's going to be pretty good, and people are going to hit and run and all that. When I talk to rank and file fans, they say that, and then they're like, yeah, I like Harburg. Like, you know, they're hopeful that he does well. I don't know, you know, skepticism is probably there, but I think any good thing that happens on offense makes sense, right?
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate your time. As always, we'll talk to you again next week.
I appreciate being on. Take care.
Thanks, Sam.
Some interesting stuff there from Sam. I don't know if I agree about how fans feel about the quarterback situation. I think they want to root for Harburg as much because he's a Nebraska kid as anything else.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know? You don't think that plays a big part in it?
No, I think they want to win.
I agree.
I think they'd rather. I don't. You know what? I at no point ever thought that it was the hometown thing.
Okay, that's fair.
Doesn't mean I'm right.
Well, you know.
When did you get soft in your old age?
Well,
are you still traumatized from Lawrence?
I am.
Rezak, like, what are we talking about
I'm a little shook here. You won't be shook, though, if you go to Pratt Dental for their BioClear method. Out in North Platte, Nebraska, Pratt Dental has you covered. They have a less invasive manner to deal with things such as putting crowns on and fixing many aesthetic dilemmas. Call Pratt Dental at 308-221-2800. More of Benning and Lulla coming up next.
The show will be back in 5 minutes. The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
I feel excited about that. I mean, we the best run defense in the country. I feel like it puts the secondary, we had to put the defense on our back after that because we know they can't run it, so they got to throw the ball. So we as a group in the secondary has to, win the game for us or hold up. And I feel like we've been doing that.
We're halfway through the show on a Monday on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. But if you're just getting your day started, you need a little pick-me-up. The energy DB and I have isn't enough to get that adrenaline coursing through your veins. Get out to the Beanery. They've got 4 great locations, Gretna, Papillion, Ashland. New location opening up soon off of 168th and Giles. They roast their own coffee, locally owned and operated. Whether you want hot, iced, frozen, whatever you want to drink. They got some snacks and muffins, and I love a breakfast sandwich, and DB owes me one.
Bye, Sasha.
The Beanery has you covered.
Oh, stop.
They're serving people coffee.
I'll take you there after. I have a card.
You have a gift card?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's got some dinero on it.
It's got a little bit of money.
Yeah, money.
A little bit of money. You want to get an iced coffee too, just because you like me?
Yeah, I got you. It's on me. Even though you've had some horrific quarterback takes.
Whoa.
No, I'm just serious.
My quarterback takes have all been defensible at the very least.
No, I like it.
Listen,
do you think? I
think people like that he's from Nebraska.
I don't know, man.
I don't know if it's the main driving force. I think Amazing Daniel said on Twitter, and this is probably
don't listen to Amazing Daniel all the time. He's
not all the time.
Cray.
Sometimes he wants to put Ben Roethlisberger in the same category as like Peyton Manning. It's like, no, sir.
Whoa. Why isn't he?
Because he just didn't play the position at the same level. Peyton Manning was better quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not having this conversation. Come on.
Okay.
Come on, man.
They're both going to the Hall of Fame. So
yeah,
that's fine.
Listen, there's a lot of people in the Hall of Fame that aren't that good at quarterback.
It's all right. So one's got more Super Bowls than the other.
They have the same amount of Super Bowls.
Appearances and stuff
They have the same amount of He's got the same amount of Super Bowls as Eli. You want to throw Eli in that conversation?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. No, I think it's he said he thinks it's a bonus for people that he's from Nebraska. And that might be the best way to put it. Like, if he was not any good, they wouldn't be clamoring for him, right? If he hadn't shown something on the field, people wouldn't be on board with it. Like, if he had the same, again, let's reverse the experiences, right? Let's say the Nebraska kid has the Jeff Sims games and Jeff Sims has the Nebraska kid games. They're going to gravitate toward the guy that played better, right? But if you have a guy playing well and he's from Nebraska, I do think that's a little kick for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's, it's a little kicker. Just add a little trade kicker. You're trying to acquire somebody. You're like, toss in a second round pick for me. Like, him being from Nebraska is the second round pick.
I get it.
It's valuable to people around here, but you're probably not getting anything out of it, right?
I think there's a significant amount of people that are wanting to see what Jeff Sims is capable of if he doesn't turn the ball over.
Yeah,
because of the upside. Because I think there's this fear that this isn't going to be good enough just yet.
And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
that's the hard part of this discussion because it's been good enough against Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech. Is it good enough if you really lean all the way into QB run game the way, it seems like they might be headed in that direction? I do kind of want to see this offense only throw the ball. I mean, I was on this train pretty early, and my number for the passing attempts that I'm comfortable with has continued to go down.
So is it less than 17?
Yeah.
Really?
Like 12 to 15 is where I'm at.
With you? You don't want to watch that.
I'm not saying I want to watch that, but if it ends up with wins, I do.
You need another. If that's the case, let's say I'll humor you for a second.
Okay, sure.
You need another ball carrier.
You absolutely do. You have to figure out another way to get other people the ball, whether it's some jet sweep stuff with wide receivers and like Jalen Lloyd and Billy Kemp or Tommy Hill or whoever, whether it's getting some QB or some fullback run game in there with Bonner and Lee Tritt.
You cannot ride Anthony Grant like this.
No, but can you get 23 carries a game out of him?
Probably, but I'm telling you.
What's a number you're comfortable with for the rest of the season for Anthony Grant?
A game?
Yeah.
20.
Okay, so 20 a game for Anthony Grant.
He's such a violent runner.
Yeah. Is it okay? I made this argument. I don't know if it's true or not, so I want you to kind of set me straight because you have experience here that I don't. The impact, I think my assertion was that the impact, and this was actually
your thesaurus this morning. I'd like to ascertain.
I actually used this argument for Harburg, but I think if I'm right, it applies to Grant as well, and if I'm wrong, it applies to neither of them, obviously. But is it different? Is the contact different if you're initiating versus receiving?
Yes.
So, like when Harburg initiates contact, I worry about that less than
100%
when Taylor Martinez would be standing straight up and get smoked.
And remember, most of Harburg's runs, excuse me, are on the edges.
Yeah. So you're getting hit by a corner or a safety.
Yeah.
Sometimes a linebacker. You're not getting like DN smoking you off.
Even on the long touchdown run that counted
mm-hmm.
when he clearly should have pitched.
Yeah.
The first guy to miss was a little guy.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So
I don't think
as he just kind of slides past his ankles, I'm like, yeah.
I don't think a lot of those little guys
kind of a business decision, but he was on him so quick because he got vertical. So he took away his angle.
Yeah, the decisiveness outperformed the wrong decision.
And listen, he's 240.
He's a big dude.
He's probably 235.
He's a big dude.
No, he's a really big dude.
Right? And it's not like Sims is a little guy.
No, they're both big guys.
They're both, you could mistake them for tight ends.
Yeah,
they're just walking by them.
They're both big guys.
Right? So that's why, I felt comfortable. I've said this all along. I feel comfortable getting the quarterback 20 carries a game regardless of who it is. Right? So if you get 20 out of Harburg or Sims, you get 20 out of Grant. That gets you to 40. For my 12 to 15 passes a game, you need 15 more.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Roughly.
Because you want 70 plays a game?
Yeah, I do, but I just
you
don't
know
think
if we're going to get there?
So you had 66 on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you were, what were they from third down? I just
3
said
of
it
11.
earlier. Yeah, 3 of 11.
Yeah.
So can you go 5 of 11 on third down?
And then you get to 72 plays?
Or
somewhere, 70, 72
yeah,
somewhere.
but they have yet to get 70 plays.
Right.
So maybe
60,
they're just not going to.
But maybe 65 is the number. Maybe
that is awful low.
It's not a lot, but maybe that's how they win games this year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that might be.
But I just wonder.
So let's call it 70, though. Let's call it 70 for.
Yeah, that's my number.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I think realistically, you can go 45% on third down conversions.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in that game, had they gone 45%, they would have ended up at 70 plays.
And I think they got 68 last week.
Yeah, that's right.
And you gave up roughly a 6-minute drive to Northern Illinois, or a 4-minute drive,
Yeah.
and
so you could have gotten to 70
and
pretty
dump
easy.
time. So it's out there.
So let's
for
call
whatever
it
the
70.
reason, it just hasn't happened.
Let's call it 70. So you got 40 between Harburg or whoever the quarterback is and Grant. Let's call 15 pass plays that get you to 55.
I'm telling you though, that 40 seems high.
Is that not their best way to win? Is to get 40 carries out of those two guys? That's been their best offense, right?
Yeah, but it's also been against non-Big Ten opponents.
Well, I understand that, but the bad passing has been against non-Big Ten opponents too. So the passing is going to get better against Big Ten opponents?
Oh, Lord.
I get the rushing might get worse, but the passing's not getting better.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Like it has to go both ways, right?
Sure.
I mean, most likely.
I'm listening.
So let's say that gets you to 55 plays. You got to find 15 somewhere, right? You got to find 15 carries somewhere from guys that aren't Anthony Grant or the quarterback.
Roughly.
So do you get 5 a game from Emmett Johnson? Is that high?
You can. I would have liked to seen Emmett Johnson with a lead back.
Yeah, in 22 personnel.
So right now there's clearly a difference
Mm-hmm.
in 1-back run game versus 2-back run game.
Yeah, 1-back is
especially out of the gun.
Yeah, 1-back is
1-back run game in 3x1s has been. I got to put it to this is where my man Stumanji comes into play. But
yeah,
it doesn't seem near as effective as 2-back.
Yeah.
So
your 22 personnel sets that have been pretty effective.
Even if it's 20 personnel,
sure, you like that better than the.
It just seems to have been better
than your 10 personnel.
Yeah,
or even 12 personnel. You like the second back in there regardless.
I do, unless
now,
there's creative ways to do it, and they're doing it.
Sure,
they'll use Fedoni to insert or Lindenmeyer.
Yeah,
right. You know, Grant hit one so hard on the edge. Lindenmeyer was an inline tight end, and he missed his block completely, and it didn't matter because he hit it so hard.
He hit the crease so hard.
Right. Solve problems with aggression, and I felt like there was a stretch there where you could have just made a living running behind wherever 44 and 24 were.
Yeah. You'd have been okay there.
Run behind those guys, especially Luke's considerably better as an inline tight end, like a natural, than he is the H-back role, kind of off the ball.
Where Fedoni seems
to
be okay.
Fedoni seems to be okay there. So,
are you surprised now how good Fedoni's been as a blocker?
No, because he's a competitive, mean kid,
and that's what you need.
Yeah, he gives zero cares.
We will wrap up hour number 2 coming up next on Benning and Lulla.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like last week. I don't know if there's ever, Coach Rhule never sat me down in his office and was like, "You're going to start this week," because I think he expects us when you're given those first team reps or even those second team reps, like he expects you to prepare like you are going to be the starter. So, I mean, him sitting us down and telling us, "Hey, you're going to start this week." I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose, because then, 1 week, if he doesn't sit you down, are you going to practice the same? So I think that's I don't know if that's his philosophy or not, but that's something I've kind of taken and run with it.
Yeah, I said what I said. I'd rather be famous instead.
Wrapping up hour number 2 on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. DB, how happy are you that you've got music?
I'm very, very happy. Can't you tell?
I know you seem pretty pumped about it. I think you should be.
It changes your mood a little bit.
It changes your mood a little bit. I'm always in a good mood. You know what else changes?
Do you know what's funny?
What?
People can go back and listen to the open.
I was in a great mood. I feel like I got a lot done that first.
He's like, "Hey, listen."
I feel like I accomplished a lot. I feel like I was doing the Lord's work there. You know who else is doing the Lord's work? It's Alumni Hall. They are your ultimate Husker shopping experience. The best and largest selection of apparel for the whole family. Adidas, Champion, Columbia, gifts, accessories, whatever you need. You get a discount if you're UNL student, faculty, or military. That's 10% off. Or everybody can earn cash back with Hall Pass rewards. Visit their 2 Lincoln locations, P Street downtown or in the South Point Pavilion. Or if you're like me, you're an Omaha guy, go to alumnihall.com and you can get whatever you need there. Alumni Hall, where Husker fans shop. No, I think I'm in a super pleasant mood. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, for a Monday morning, I feel like I'm bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go, ready to greet the world.
I don't know.
I got my car back. I'm in a good mood.
Yeah, it looks nice.
It
You
does.
actually parked like an adult too, so that was cool.
Well, it was an accident. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, you are pretty poor at parking.
I'm really bad at it, and I don't care that much if there aren't other people around.
It's
so
selfish.
Selfish to who? There's no one else here.
Personal pride.
There's no one else here.
Personal pride.
There's no one else here.
It's not that. Every time I hear that, I cringe.
They did a good job though on my car. It looks good.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, they did a good job. I appreciate that. You know who else does a good job? Well, not always. Michigan Lance. We'll see how that goes on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline.
Wow.
Michigan Lance, what's going on, bud?
He dropped off. We got Nate.
Oh, just kidding. Let's get Nate instead. I didn't want to talk to Lance anyway.
Yeah,
Come on,
see you, Lance.
Come on, Nate. What do you got?
Hey, how's it going? How's it going, guys?
Nate, what's up, buddy?
I can't call. Let me get off speakerphone, boy. Y'all kept me on hold a nice little minute today, boy.
Wow.
Nate, we got stuff going on, man. Come on.
Hey, we
Yeah, I
did
know, man, but-
we did get to your Bears a little bit.
Yeah, man. I don't, man. Justin looks bad, man.
Hey, that franchise is a mess.
Yeah, it is, man. But yeah, man. I love your show, guys, and I just I seen the game. It's a good win, man, and you know my girlfriend, all her family, they big Nebraska fans, and I'm gonna tell you, man. You know, I'm born and raised in Alabama, Auburn fan since I could walk, and I've never seen nothing like Nebraska, man. Like when y'all lose, man, it's like it's like man, I'd be like, well, I ain't getting none tonight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because it's like a mixture of sadness and intense anger and just dejection. Oh man, I'd be like, please win, you know what I mean?
Hey, but
with a lot of touchdowns, I need scoring. You know what I mean?
So you're an Auburn fan, right? So this past weekend had to shock you, right? You didn't see that coming from A&M, did you?
Yeah, I did, man. Because I seen Auburn play. Yeah, I seen them play, man, and they I seen Auburn play. What game was that they played against?
Are you a Hugh Freeze guy?
Not really, man. You know, because it's that whole spread offense. You know, like I was watching one game. It was 4th and inches, right?
Mm-hmm.
4th and inches, and he spread them out and threw a pass, man. But
you're like, I'm done.
Yeah. But you know, it's gonna, I'm used to Auburn having, the third buried tailback. I was really a big Gus Malzahn guy. You know,
I like Gus Malzahn too.
Me too.
Yeah, but see the thing about Gus, he just wasn't. See, down south, man, in the SEC, you don't have to be just a football coach, but you got to be a people person too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Gus wasn't just. He was just a good X and O's guy, but he wasn't very sociable, man. But I just want to allude back to what y'all was saying about quarterbacks and I think the real big reason that people misevaluate quarterbacks is because they don't get hit in practice no more.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't really think what a guy can do to at least get planted on his face,
Yeah. I think that's and that's funny you say that, Nate, because Coach Rhule, I was saying, just a little side note, when I was out before the game earlier, he said, the hard thing about quarterbacks is you never really know on an evaluation until they're in an actual game.
Right. But do you think that if they would get hit in practice, you could get a better feel for them?
Yeah, and they hit their guys too, and I appreciate the call, Nate. That's why I like the way that Nebraska practiced, because all bets were off from a physicality standpoint.
Yeah,
and he said he said something else Saturday too that's interesting. He said, if I had to go back and do it over again, maybe situationally, it wouldn't have been as much as a free for all. I would have focused specifically on situational things with our offense, as opposed to always having to adjust to what our defense was doing, because we never got a chance to settle in.
Okay.
They were always throwing something at us new.
Yeah.
So it's not like one week he'd say, hey, listen, let's work against an even front. Hey, 1 week, let's work against odd fronts. Hey, let's go against an over front. Hey, let's go against an under front.
He didn't dictate to Tony White what to run against them.
He just kind of let them do their thing.
Yeah, that's probably something he would change, I would guess. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I would, because we didn't, and this is just how, and I say just with quotes, we didn't get opponent specific until probably 10 days out.
I don't know that I would call that opponent specific, but it's situationally specific against different defenses, right? Like you're not running like most other teams in your conference or they on your schedule aren't running a 3-3-5.
But here's the thing, though. If you want to get good looks, you want people to do what they do.
Right.
Like, can I get a good eval if I make you play, some 4-3 under front, and that's not what you play?
No, but at the same time, if you understand that most teams are going to give you different looks than the one that you're presenting, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice not to dictate to some of that a little bit, right? Like I go back to basketball because that's what I coached, right? We would sometimes be in situations where we would say, hey, let's show some 1-3-1 here and practice situationally because we knew we were going to see a team that would throw that at us a little bit, right? We didn't get the best looks from our defense because we didn't really run a 1-3-1, but we still needed to see it to be able to execute against it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that matters some. I'm not saying you should have done that all the time. Like sometimes you want to let Tony White do what he does and throw whatever his best defense is at you, but sometimes you probably want to say, hey, let's get these done against specific looks so we know how we want to react to it. Like you can do both, right?
And I think situationally, listen, hey, we're going to work, 3rd and longs or 4th and shorts. Or I'm not saying they didn't do that because they did a ton of that, right? 2-minute offense, 1 timeout, 60 yards to go, 2 times. Like situationally, they did a ton, but I think going against Nebraska's looks, I don't know.
It's just different, right? It's just different. It doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
And so maybe Rhule doesn't feel like they're quite as well prepared as they could have been if they had done that extra they had controlled that extra variable.
I just wish I had a little more clarity on what he meant.
Yeah.
Like what would they have settled into now versus what we've seen? Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair, man. Maybe it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, because I don't know.
Not.
I don't know.
Like maybe you go through that exercise, you're like, we're still going to do this, XYZ, whatever. But maybe it does. And that's the thing we can't go back and figure out. But it is interesting that I like that he thinks about those things.
Me too.
Though, right?
100.
Whether it would have changed anything or not.
That was such my big takeaway that I didn't even ask a follow-up. I was just busy processing.
You were just busy like, I like that he thought about that.
Yeah, because it's real-time evaluation.
And it's not something that everybody does. A lot of these things sound simple, right? Like, why wouldn't you run situationally against? And it's like, I can't tell you how many places that I've either talked to coaches or whatever that they don't even think to do situational stuff at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, that is a good idea. We should do. It's like, because you never, going back to basketball, you never know how you're going to react with 90 seconds left. You need to start fouling unless you've practiced that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know how a really good example is that first game against Minnesota, right?
And Chris K says it's not like they weren't getting that look in scout periods. Listen to what I'm telling you. So here's the thing, because this is what happens. So the more that you're getting on tape, if it's different than what it's been in camp, you don't know what you're working on situationally. So let's say as this has gone on and you've played without Sims, and you're playing to Harburg's strengths. So this is what the offense is morphed into. If it's different than what it was in camp, you're still learning on the fly situational.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing in
nothing's ever a finished product. Like I don't think people necessarily appreciate that.
Yeah, so now it's the evolution of where they're at today.
Yes.
That they're building.
Like the cake is never baked. You're still always working on it. Like this is not such a finite situation. We are 2 hours in. Coming up next, we've got Matt Brown from The Athletic to talk about national college football on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes.
Who will just Sunday stroll it into the end zone. There's a quick score for you. Troy Franklin, touchdown number 5 this season. And my biggest worry was he was going to look up and go. And back to throw, going to go fade route to Franklin. He's got it. Touchdown, Oregon. You got to wait for the guy in stripes to throw his arms up. But you can see he made the catch on the fade, deep fade to the left-hand corner. And Troy Franklin, his 4th touchdown catch of the year.
Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
And back to throw, going to go fade route to Franklin. He's got it. Touchdown, Oregon. You got to wait for the guy in stripes to throw his arms up. But you can see he made the catch on the fade, deep fade to the left-hand corner. And Troy Franklin, his 4th touchdown catch of the year.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Want to tell you about our friends at Zipline Brewing and their Acres Ale. It's an authentic American beer brewed with Nebraska corn. It's a crisp, clean, light, and refreshing flavor. Locally brewed, perfect beer to wind down with at the end of your workday. Our workday is just getting started, but I'm sure our guy Matt Brown from The Athletic's been after it for a minute. Matt, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Matt, it's all athletic all the time. Your colleague Mitch Sherman just did and I'm biased, a great piece on my kiddo in his recruitment, and it's like Mitch got him to say more things out loud to him than he has in his almost 18 years on this planet with me. So we're going to continue to be big fans of The Athletic.
I got to catch up on my reading this morning. I haven't got around to it yet.
Hey, so right away, obviously I'm a subscriber. I'm pulling this up, and you have a team on your page that I think they're flying under the radar. We're kind of like, are they? And I'm not sure Cal was a great benchmark.
I knew you were going to go Washington here.
But it appears Washington is pretty good. What do you think, right? There's still a work in progress, but the Pac-12 appears to be deep.
Yeah, so I really struggled with my AP poll vote this week because I ended up putting Georgia number one. I kept Georgia number one. The idea being that, we still know they're really talented and they're back-to-back national champs, and we shouldn't be voting on the past necessarily, but they're kind of number one until proven otherwise. But I think you could any of the top 9, if they ended up emerging number one at some point, I wouldn't be shocked. I just think it's a very deep list of contenders and nobody is perfect. There's not the 2 runaways like Alabama and Clemson often have been, or Alabama and Georgia, whatever. And first among that list right now is Washington. I voted Washington number 2. And again, I think the margin is very slim. Oregon might be better than Washington. USC might be better than Washington. Utah certainly has the defense to play with Washington. But, given just, if you ask me who is playing the best football right now, I would answer the Huskies because, it's on one hand, you can't take everything away from beating Michigan State because, as we saw, Maryland followed up and also dominated Michigan State. They're just a complete mess. Boise State, Washington dominated, but they're not, Chris Peterson era of Boise State. But still, 56-19, 43-10, 41-7. The Cal game ended up being 59-32, but it wasn't that close. I mean, they just absolutely dominated in the first half. So you got Kalen DeBoer's offense, year 2 with Michael Penix throwing to as good a receiving core. I didn't want to quite say the best because we still know Ohio State exists, but Washington, you might be able to stand toe-to-toe with them in terms of the top 3.
Certainly on par with Florida State. They get a lot of run, too, in their wide receiving core.
So it's a deep, deep, deep offense that is averaging 9.23 yards per play, which is absurd. And, look, no, Michigan State isn't as good as they've been. Boise State's not as good as they've been. But there's still something to go out and absolutely just dominate these opponents completely every week. And just the interesting thing with the Washington, however, is we're going to find out. They get Arizona. I don't want to say pushover. On the road, Arizona's a little bit better than they've been. But Arizona then an off week, and then they get Oregon, which is the game that will show a lot. And then, USC, Utah, Oregon State, and Washington State, all of them are ranked. That is their November. So we're going to learn a lot about Washington down the road, but I really like their chances. It'll be very, very interesting once they get to those matchups, though, against USC and Caleb Williams, against Bo Nix and Oregon, and against Utah's defense.
My job requires me to be a certain level of professional, so I have to be objective here. Texas appears to be pretty good, and a lot of it has to do with the fact they're playing with a certain level of physicality that I think is kind of flying under the radar. Dare I say Sark has a tough football team down in Texas.
That feels like kind of I don't want to say the only missing piece, but we haven't really said that about a Texas team in a while, right? Bijan Robinson could run you over last year for sure, but in terms of line play and all of that, it's just, the level of talent that Texas accumulated did not translate into a tough, dominant football team. And now it's certainly possible. I was just singing Washington's phrases and talking about how, hey, that game against Oregon could decide a lot. But, if I put in my article today about the AP poll that I think Georgia, even without losing, I think it's going to fall from number 1 just because it'll probably have a lousy performance against Auburn or Kentucky and doesn't have these big marquee game opportunities. So I think Texas goes out and beats an undefeated Oklahoma October 7th and Georgia messes around. I could see Texas rising to number 1 in a couple weeks, or Washington doing it after if it beats Oregon in a few weeks. I think it's kind of weird where Georgia has 55 of the 63 first place votes in the poll, but it feels like its hold on number 1 is pretty tenuous just because it hasn't been overly impressive compared to the Georgia of the past, and it's just not playing great opponents. Versus, Texas already has that win over Alabama, which is now helped by Alabama going out and beating Ole Miss and at least looking like semblance of a good football team again. So I think there's an opportunity for Texas. especially given the way Oklahoma is playing. Like, Oklahoma's going to be undefeated going into that game. There's an opportunity for Texas to truly rise to the top here. Now, I say that they do have to play Kansas this week, and that's not
that's a good program. Yeah,
right? Like Kansas is kind of just really, really frustrating to play. I feel like the things they do on offense. The healthy Jalen Daniels, the quarterback, like can't overlook this week as I talk about Texas maybe rising to number 1 in a few weeks. Kansas is ranked for a reason right now.
And they're physical too, man. I've watched them close just because of the recruiting here locally. That is a physical football team.
Which is amazing to say. I mean, like Lance Leipold, I mean, what a job as a coach with making them from, just complete pushover all the time. Not necessarily for Texas a couple of those years. They beat Texas a couple of years ago. But, now they're the team you don't want to play. Because they're just, you should beat them. You have more talent, but they have a good quarterback. They do creative things. They are a difficult out who's going to upset somebody.
Matt, from a national landscape, we had a ton of good matchups this past weekend. Who do you think, I don't know if won the weekend is the right term, but who did you walk away from this weekend thinking had maybe the best performance or best outing against those high quality matchups? I mean, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Florida State, Clemson, all those.
Shoot, it could have been Notre Dame in a loss.
Yeah. Who do you think walked away with feeling the best about how they played?
That's kind of the interesting thing about this weekend is like, it felt like, okay, here's 6 ranked matchups. One of these teams is going to assert itself and like maybe even challenge Georgia for number 1. And then it's like, well, did anybody Florida State could have lost 2 weeks in a row, really. Like,
I probably should have lost to Clemson.
State. Like, I don't think, I don't want to like plummet them in the poll because they won at Clemson. Clemson's not the same, but it's still a tough place to play. They're still a good football team. But Florida State, is lucky to have won that game, given a kicker missed a chip shot field goal. Ohio State, I think it's a very good win on the road. Notre Dame is really good. Notre Dame has a quarterback that it hasn't had in a while. Good on the lines. So Ohio State pulled it out in dramatic fashion. They got a gift with Notre Dame playing with 10 minutes at the end of the game, but still, big win on the road, no doubt. And answered some questions I have about Ohio State because I think they've been a little shakier than expected early in the season. It's like, all right, there's no doubt that Oregon was impressive. Colorado was obviously a bit overrated. They're still, but Oregon probably could have scored 90 points if it wanted to. That's the way it looked from the beginning. So that was impressive. I will say, how about the team? I'm based in State College, Pennsylvania, and I do set out a result that kind of got overlooked. I know Iowa's offense is terrible, but Penn State
100%, Matt.
Almost tripled up Iowa's plays.
100%.
And the weird thing about the game for Penn State was, like, you look at the numbers. Drew Aller, it's not like he was making big plays. He averaged 4.5 yards per attempt. But Iowa has a really, 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 really good defense.
Mm-hmm.
And Penn State just methodically and patiently just dinked and dunked, took what they gave them, grinded out yards on the ground and kept playing keep away. And it was really impressive, for one of the most impressive games I've seen from a quarterback who averaged 4.5 yards per attempt, because Drew Aller did not make any mistakes, made a couple incredible throws, took what defense gave him, has not turned the ball over yet in a Penn State uniform. And Penn State's defense, again, I know it's Iowa's offense, but still 0 points, under 80 yards. Their defensive front's really impressive. They're a more physical Penn State team than we've seen on the offensive line. And Drew Aller is, he's going to make his big plays this year, but so far they haven't been getting big plays on the ground, haven't been throwing downfield as much with Aller, and they're still dominating everybody. So Penn State's going to be undefeated when they play Ohio State in October. So I already, talked about the opportunity to get to number 1 for Washington, for Texas. Whenever Penn State, Ohio State, that's going to be a really, really highly anticipated matchup of undefeated teams in mid to late October. So that's going to be one to watch.
We might as well just stay with the aesthetically non-pleasing football team, because I think they're good too as they come to Lincoln this weekend. Michigan, extremely workmanlike. They just do what they do. Yeah. So when you look at Penn State gets a lot of run defensively, Iowa rightfully so. Michigan defensively appears to be pretty sound. The depth along the D-line is spectacular. How good top to bottom do you think Michigan is capable of being?
They're capable of winning the national title. It's been a very weird start to the year again because their non-conference schedule has been just so laughable 2 years in a row. And it's like we get to the point where, hey, finally a semi-decent test where they're playing Rutgers. Like that's where Michigan's at right now because the schedule is so bad in September. Now, credit to Rutgers. Rutgers was 3-0. They're I don't think they're the pushover necessarily that they've been in some years, but it feels like every game's been kind of the same. Like you look at the scores for Michigan: 30-3, 35-7, 31-6, 31-7.
Yeah,
they're not like overwhelming anybody. They're just coming out playing good defense. They're not running the ball quite as well as they had been. I think they ran the ball pretty well against Rutgers, but the first 3 games it's been kind of hit or miss sometimes. So it just feels like this is kind of the first real game they're playing. I mean, not that Nebraska is the world beater right now, as we know, but it's still their first road game. And Michigan's kind of just been able to sleepwalk and had the Harbaugh suspension. It's just been a weird start to the year. But J.J. McCarthy shows flashes. He had a bad game against Bowling Green, played pretty well against Rutgers. We know they have a really good running back. The offensive line is still really good. They have transfers in there. But it's a team that's made the playoffs 2 years in a row. But on paper, this looks like the most talented team Harbaugh has had at Michigan. Whether they hit that ceiling, I don't know. You're in a division with a Penn State team that is capable of going to the playoff, an Ohio State team that's obviously capable of going to the playoff. So it's going to be a fascinating race in the Big Ten East. And, Michigan doesn't play Penn State until November 11th. And obviously they don't play Ohio State until the last game. So, will they stub their toe at a Nebraska, at a Minnesota? I doubt it. I think they'll go in and probably win pretty handily. But it's just a weird year in which they're kind of just going to be relatively untested compared to a lot of the other top teams.
We're talking with Matt Brown of The Athletic. Let's stay with the Big Ten and look at the West for a minute. Not that there's a ton to look at there. Have you seen anyone in the West that you felt particularly good about, or is it just
no?
Is it as ugly as it would appear?
It's as ugly as it would appear, right? I mean, to see a result like Northwestern coming back from down 21 to beat Minnesota, what is
unbelievable.
I mean,
yeah,
that was bizarre. I mean, Purdue is kind of a mess post-Braum. Illinois, I think they still win some games, but they don't. They lost too much from that team last year when you look at their secondary. The running game's not as strong. Iowa is still a complete disaster on offense. Penn State's defense is really good, but that was a complete disaster on Saturday. Wisconsin, I think they could put it together, and I don't think they're going to be maybe as good as we thought in the preseason. It's still kind of a learning curve with the offensive adjustment. I don't think they're as good on the offensive line as they've been. They might have lost one of the 2 running backs, Ches Malusi, to an injury. But then again, it's beyond Ohio State, October 28th. Like, they can beat everybody on their schedule. So I think the type of year where you see like a 9-3 or maybe even 8-4 type Wisconsin team. And honestly, I still wouldn't be surprised if Iowa was right in there, because we know Iowa's defense is going to be very good and they're going to win a bunch of ugly games as they do. So nobody's that impressive. Nobody from the Big Ten West is going to win the Big Ten title. I think that's safe to say. But you know what? It could be an interesting race in its own way because it could be so tight.
Again, another team I follow closely just because of the recruiting angle of it. And Duke appears to be pretty good. I know Elko is fantastic at what he does. I like that staff. But let me ask you, in comparison to Mac Brown and what's going on in Chapel Hill quietly, especially as they're getting better defensively, who's the challenger in the ACC? Is it Duke or Clemson if Florida State's going to have their parade rained on?
It's interesting. I mean, Duke's, 5th in yards per play on defense right now.
Mm-hmm.
They have a legit shot to beat Notre Dame. I mean, what better spot to catch Notre Dame coming off of that?
And they're pretty good, Matt. I like Duke's pretty good.
And how about this is Duke's first time hosting a ranked versus ranked matchup since 1994.
Yeah.
So this is the biggest game in Duke in a long time. Also, just to throw it out there, this is the first time Kansas and Duke are in the same AP poll at the same time since 1960. So a little bit of a weird thing to look at the AP poll and have Duke and Kansas both ranked in football. But look, Duke's got an NFL prospect quarterback in Riley Leonard. They clearly have a heck of a coach in Mike Elko, who was acclaimed defensive coordinator and inherited a bit of a mess, honestly. I mean, Cutcliffe did a fantastic job at Duke, but the last 2 years they were down pretty bad there. So to do what they've done, and look, you could say the last 3 games they didn't really play anybody, but Northwestern did just come back to beat Minnesota, and ordinarily for Duke, they're not necessarily blowing out the teams that you're supposed to beat. It's Duke, and they blew out 3 opponents in a row after beating Clemson. Now you get Notre Dame at home, coming off of just an absolute debacle of an ending from Notre Dame and a heartbreaking loss. This is a really interesting spot. Now, with all that said, I tend to still lean North Carolina as the best challenger to Florida State in the ACC. Drake May's more proven, certainly, than Riley Leonard, and I think North Carolina talent level is a little bit better overall. The defense is getting better. So I do think UNC has a chance to legitimately challenge FSU. But, I mean, I guess we'll find out. I mean, Duke's got Notre Dame, NC State, Florida State, Louisville the next 4 games. That's a tough stretch. Obviously, they go to North Carolina late November. But, I'm also saying all this, and it's like, Miami's sitting right there too, and we shouldn't dismiss Miami, which I think has made a nice leap up from last year. That win over Texas A&M was very good. I think Tyler Van Dyke is playing an offense that suits him better with their offensive coordinator change. So the ACC is pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know if any of these teams are going to be like.
Yeah, how about Syracuse, right? I get to think we're talking about basketball. So Carolina, Duke, Kansas, Syracuse. That's like, whoa, wrong sport.
Louisville is also sport. Like it's kind of interesting. There's teams that haven't played necessarily the best opponents, but like it's an interesting race with Clemson being down and already having not only 2 losses, but Clemson's 0-2 in the conference.
Yeah.
So the door is wide open for somebody to emerge. It's almost like a lighter version of the Pac-12. I don't think these teams are as good as the top Pac-12 teams, but like it should be a fascinating race when you look at all of those teams that are up to pretty good starts, might be a little bit better than usual. And starting this week, Duke, to be this excited to watch a Duke home game is unusual, but I think it should be a really good one.
Matt, you mentioned you didn't think there was a ton of separation in the top 9-ish teams in the rankings. Is there somebody from outside that group, so 10 through 25, that you look at and say, hey, maybe they could crash the party too, but you're just not, there's some variables you're not sure on yet?
If Alabama decided to be Alabama, you can never dismiss them, right? Until they get that second loss, we know it's a talented team. I don't think so. I do think there's still just like significant problems there, and I don't think they can run the table. When you talk about Tennessee, Texas A&M, LSU, you can go into Kentucky. But Alabama is still sitting there and saying, as soon as we dismiss them, they'll end up going on a run and figuring things out, because it looks like their defense could be pretty darn good based on the way they played against Ole Miss. I think Oklahoma's interesting because it looks like they've got a heck of a defense for Brent Venables there.
If Gabriel if he was just a little more accurate, he misses a lot of open guys.
But I think it's not like the Big 12 isn't winnable. Like I think there's good teams in the Big 12, but it's not. It's kind of, if Oklahoma beats Texas October 7th, all of a sudden they're looking at being 6-0, assuming they beat Iowa State this weekend, which I think they should easily. But they'd be 6-0 and wouldn't have a game they can't win the rest of the year. So I think they're lurking with a tougher than usual defense. So I think those are the teams I would probably look at. Maybe one of the ACC teams gets hot, but I think they're probably going to beat up on each other a little bit. So
can Utah get enough offense?
Oklahoma's hanging.
Can Utah get enough offense to be in that group?
Certainly, if and when Cam Rising returns, it gives them a better shot. I don't think so, but man,
that defense is so good.
It was impressive, and it gives them a shot in any of those games. But it'll be just what a way to go out for the Pac-12 at least. It's going to be fun to watch for us. I mean, Utah's got at USC October 21st. They got October 28th against Oregon, and they're at Washington November 11th. So we're going to have to see all three of those quarterbacks we talked about going or facing that Utah defense. And, you can't dismiss them because they're physical. They'll punch you in the mouth. The defense is really good. Their offense is going to get better. So I don't think Utah is as high a ceiling as those other three teams in the Pac-12 if they play their best. I think USC, if it played its best football, could win the national title. Washington, I don't know if it can win the national title, but I think their offense can play with anybody. And I think Oregon's really darn good. I don't think Utah has that ceiling necessarily, but it also wouldn't shock me if they won the Pac-12. If you put them against any of those teams in the Pac-12 title game, they could win that game. So.
Crazy that the Apple Cup at the end of the year could be meaningful because Dickert's got those guys playing in Pullman, and I'm mad that they beat my dark horse Pac-12 team. But man, Ward and company, those guys are physical too.
Yeah, I'm dismissing them, but they beat Wisconsin, they beat Oregon State. Cameron Ward looks like he's playing well. They're clearly playing with a chip on their shoulder, and we'll see. They got to go to Seattle. They got to go to Eugene, but they don't play USC and they don't play Utah.
Yep.
So they're going to win some games.
Yep.
They're off this week, but it'll be an interesting trip to UCLA in a couple weeks.
Matt Brown from The Athletic. Matt, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
That is Matt Brown from The Athletic. He is the deputy managing editor for The Athletic College Football. Before we take a break here, I want to tell you about Omaha Whiskey Fest coming up October 7th at the Hilton Omaha downtown on Cass Street. You can go to omahawhiskeyfest.com to get more information about how to get tickets, how to get involved. It is a celebration of over 65 brands of whiskey from across the world. Make sure you go check out omahawhiskeyfest.com. Coming up next, we've got the Sports Six Pack here on Benning and Lulla.
We'll be right back in 5 minutes. We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
4th and 2 from the 17. The line to gains the 15. Shipley to the right of Klubnik in the gun. 2 receivers right, 1 to the left. Klubnik going to throw. 4th and 2. Pops over the middle. Yeah! Incomplete. Klubnik missed his man. Let's fire up the war chant and plant the spear. Noles win. Noles win. Florida State is back on top of the ACC mountain where they belong. The final in overtime. Florida State 31, Clemson 24. The streak ends in Death Valley.
When we could be superstars, we've been round the wrecking cars.
Hey, bro, is that Jambo?
What is that stakes for us?
It's like a brand new world.
I was gonna say you're in a totally different mood with the music.
It's like I thought I was nuts before.
Well, I don't think that's changed.
No.
We're getting to the last half hour of the show here today. Want to give a shout out to our friends at KFOR in Lincoln who've been with us for the 9 o'clock hour. As always, the entire show can be heard on AM 590 ESPN Omaha or ESPN Tri-Cities in central Nebraska. Right now, though, it's time for the War Horse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup. All the stuff we didn't get to today.
Clean up.
By the way, that is a great song, by the way.
Oh, I don't even know that song.
That is
Kodak Black.
Yeah, I was going to talk about what it means to be a gremlin because that's the name of the song.
Oh, I thought you were going to call me a gremlin for not knowing the song.
No. Basically, the premise behind the song is don't allow, it's like gremlins, don't allow people to hang around after midnight.
What's Mama always say? Nothing good happens after midnight.
Hey, gotta get up on out of here.
Gotta go.
Shane, don't we have a fancy open for the cleanup?
Yeah, you want me to play it?
Yeah, I'd like to brag about your production. Up. That's not what it was. Okay.
Maybe it should be.
Okay. So you're not gonna play the cleanup?
Nah, I just like that song.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
that's my bad.
I
I
guess
told
we'll just clean it
Listen,
up.
I told Shane it was going to be the 6-pack. It's actually the sports cleanup. I forgot what day it was because I've been arguing with people for 3 days about the same thing.
Yeah, I feel like you brought a lot of that to the show this morning.
Yeah.
Things you wanted us to get to from the weekend, but we didn't.
Clean up on aisle 6.
It's the sports cleanup.
Listen, you like it when I'm a little spicy.
Dude, I just never know, like, if you're going to sleep it off.
No.
And apparently you
No,
did.
that's not something I do. Sleeping it off is not in my wheelhouse.
You're like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna stew on this for a while.
Yeah, a lot of days I wake up and choose violence, so that's where we're at here.
Oh, the Surly Ravi's a good Ravi.
Yeah, no, it makes for some interesting content sometimes.
Not as bad as me almost falling off the stage.
That was bad. That's not great.
Yeah, I snapped that thing.
I'm glad that thing wasn't your legs. I thought you were gonna snap like your leg falling off the stage here.
Put a hole in my hand though. That's
not all the way through though. Like
I know, I was very fortunate.
Yeah, I thought that was gonna be a lot uglier.
It does hurt a little bit.
Well, you've been mussing up your hands for the last week anyway. Just
I know,
getting in fights with kids.
Freaking
so
raggedy.
I mean, not an actual fight, just practicing.
I told him I loved him on Saturday just because we had to have some heart-to-hearts with our football team, and I told him. I said, Bo, I love you, man. Like, I just appreciate how you don't let this whole recruiting process dictate your level of greatness.
Yeah.
He's undersized and he's not prototypical anything. He is just an amazing player. And I love him for it.
You know who's is prototypical sized and not undersized at all and still maybe not getting the attention he deserves?
Here we go.
Are we going to do that again today?
I don't know. Who are we talking about?
It might just be a little guy with Cole Anthony Rizak.
Did you see that picture next to CJ? To Christian?
Yeah, he's bigger than he is, or at least the same size.
I told you, he's a big kid.
He's a big kid.
Yeah.
This isn't he's undersized, underdog. Like, no, that's everything you want, size, weight out of a quarterback.
Yeah, what do you think that I haven't talked to CJ or Anthony since they've been back, but you had to think that was a pretty electric atmosphere.
Oh yeah,
I actually think I have more respect for Notre Dame in the loss than I maybe do for Ohio State in the win. I'm watching that game, replaying it in my head. I feel like, Ohio State shouldn't have won.
Yeah, Notre Dame should have won that game. It's the same way I felt about
Clemson.
Yeah, I thought Clemson.
I couldn't, but I looked at Sharpie. We're like, how did
Florida State win that game?
Win.
I'm sitting there watching that game the entire time, thinking, yeah, this is even though it's relatively close, they're kind of keeping in contact. I just looked at it and go, they're not playing a game that they're going to win.
Did you start to feel good after the scoop score?
Yes.
Did you see where that blitz came from? That is totally on Klubnik.
Yeah.
He came from 7 yards off the ball, second level.
Yeah.
I'm like,
wasn't it? Am I remembering correctly? Because I didn't rewatch that game. Didn't it come straight at his face?
Yeah, it was from front side.
That's something you have to see.
That's a front side pressure.
And
it got there.
It sure did.
Yeah.
That's that one and Notre Dame. It felt like, I don't want to say the wrong team won because people make plays, right? But the entire kind of vibe of the game was feeling the other direction.
Were you caught off guard in our cleanup this weekend that coaches were talking to old people?
I'm over it, man.
Even Dickert needed a little clarification, and it was Lee Corso.
I wouldn't take.
We're
no
upset
offense,
over
no
Corso
offense.
and Holtz.
I wouldn't take anything either of those two guys say too seriously.
Hey, come on now, Ravi Lulla here for
listen. Corso's been through it. No hate on the guy, but
I'm a little disappointed they keep trotting him out there.
I am too. I feel bad for him.
And Kirk has to kind of clean it up for him.
He babysits him a little bit.
Says what he means to say.
Yeah, he's the Corso translator a little bit. It's why does he still need to be out
and
there?
Maybe listen, here's the thing.
Maybe he wants to be out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But don't you have to protect a guy from himself at some point?
You do, but what if that's what he has to get out of bed for?
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get it. I do. I get that argument. And if that's the case, as long as ESPN's aware of what they're doing, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
As long as they don't think, hey, this is still a good idea for the sake of it being a good idea. It's just, hey, we feel like we owe this to Lee and it's what he wants. I'm okay with that. I can live with that, right? It's like the longtime head coach that maybe it's not going great at the end, but he wants to go out his way. I can live with that. As long as you're aware, you're not delusional about it. We're both big on self-awareness. I'm okay with that. No, I thought there were a couple. The thing I wanted to talk about with Notre Dame, Ohio State, though, because all the attention goes to the 10 men on the field, right? And the mistake of Freeman not getting the 10th guy out there or not subbing when he should, or whatever his excuse was, whatever the actual thing was, whatever happened, right? The thing that we overlook, they still had an interception that in their hands that they should have won the game.
100%.
Right. We always look at
100%.
I mean, Nebraska, the same thing against Minnesota, right? Anthony Grant gets all the hate. As a Gifford had an interception in the end zone.
Yep.
Right. Like we always gravitate towards the mistake rather than the lack of execution. Right. Because I mean, probably one of the most famous examples I can think of is the Bartman thing, right? Alex Gonzalez boots a double play ball. If he doesn't do that, that never happens. No one knows Bartman's name. He can still live in Chicago. He doesn't have to go incognito.
A guy with like a
Tampa.
990 fielding percentage that season.
And that's all he can do. He couldn't hit worth a lick.
Yeah.
That was his job. If he doesn't boot a routine double play ball, no one knows who Steve Bartman is, right? But no one remembers Alex Gonzalez. Everybody remembers Steve Bartman. Nobody remembers the dropped interception in the end zone, or the dropped interception for Notre Dame in the middle of the field. Everybody remembers 10 men on the field.
How good was the piece with Jeff and Xavier Watts, though?
That was incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't know a lot of that stuff.
I remember one time Jeff Watts and I sat at, I don't even know if it's still open.
Okay.
I had a bison burger for lunch at, is it Schmitty's Garage?
Oh,
someplace on Dodge, like 78th.
I think so. I don't know if that specific location is open. I think there's still Schmitty's.
Back there behind where the mall was at.
I remember he had
this
sweet black truck, and I just remember being impressed that like he still wants to always be super. He wants to do his own thing. He doesn't want any help.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's in such a realist, but that was. I mean, I've known X since he was a kid.
You've been a big Xavier Watts guy the whole time.
100%, because that's who.
Yeah,
that's who. Caleb totally modeled his personality after. So there's two guys.
Yeah.
Team light skin. It was Watson and Keegan Johnson. I'm dead.
Like team light skin on me.
like he's a big Watts just sent him a snap last week. I was like, wait, he said what? X has some opinions on where he should be going to school.
Yeah, I bet he does.
Yeah, he said it to Lob, and I was like, he can't say that. That's it. That's undue influence.
Listen, peer recruiting, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys see who Amazing Daniel brought up on the screen there?
Who?
I didn't.
Same thing with Bill Buckner.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh,
they still played a game 7 after that.
1,000.
They played a game 7 after that.
I hate to give Daniel credit, but
we've got Hub Arkush coming up next.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes.
5-step drop, roll it to his left, gonna step up in the pocket, and it's picked off.
We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Here's the snap. 5-step drop. Rolling to his left. Going to step up in the pocket. And it's picked off by A.J. Epinesa going the other way. Blockers in front to the 5. Touchdown, Buffalo! A.J. Epinesa with the 5th takeaway of the day. And this one goes for a pick 6. Woo!
Back to throw, Mike White. Looking downfield, wants it all. Deep downfield, he's got chosen. Robbie chosen across the field. Touchdown, Miami.
Dougie told me he been on some positive.
Yeah.
Lately, I just want to show up and body.
Yeah.
Wrapping up the show here on a Monday morning.
Oh, my life.
DB's just vibing over here.
Caleb hates this song. I play it on the way to school on Fridays, and he gets so mad.
Yeah, I don't love it.
Okay, that's fine, because you don't like to be inspired.
I do like to be inspired, but I get jacked up about weird songs, man. I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah, whatever song you told me 2 weeks ago that I'd never even heard of.
Yeah.
What song was that?
This Too Shall Pass by OK Go.
Yeah, who's OK Go?
It's a band.
It's a band. What a weirdo.
No, I get jazzed up by weird songs.
So what did you call Travis Kelce's girlfriend?
T-Swizzle.
That's her nickname?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, T-Swizzle.
Yeah, some people call her T-Swizzle.
All right, the more you know. I'm like, who?
You're not a big T-Swizzle
Yeah,
fan?
so do you know, are you familiar with Kelce's dating history?
I know he had a weird reality show once.
So
that's about all I know, to be honest.
TK is fairly
prolific.
What's the word? Oh gosh, how can I say this?
So you trying to say a word that won't get you fired?
Yeah, so she historically is not been his type.
Oh,
she actually is the antithesis.
I know exactly
what
what
his
you mean
type
now.
has been. So
I could see that. Yeah.
So I find it interesting.
Well,
I find it very interesting.
He obviously hasn't found love, so maybe he's just trying something new.
I don't know. I'm a big Kelce guy. I hate to admit it because he's a Chief, but
I like Jason more than Travis.
I like them both.
I do too. But
I
if
like
I had
them
to
both.
pick, I'd go Jason. That seems like a real dude. I like him.
And they seem like polar opposites, even
They
though
really
they both
do.
run their mouth. Jason is a lot more grounded.
Yeah, he's the big brother. You can tell.
TK is kind of out there, but I'm a big Kelce guy. I hate
TK.
It's like
definitely-
I like Mahomes. I like Snead. I like a lot of Chiefs, and I don't like.
And I love
anything-
Andy Reid.
I don't like anything about Kansas City
Don't
other
you-
than some of their players.
Don't you get tired of it though when you're sitting there watching a game, any random game without Kansas City in it, and it feels like you're watching a Kansas City game because every single commercial has one of those 2 or 3 guys in it, including the head coach Andy Reid. So
I
it's
like
like you're
Andy
watching
Reid, though.
just like you're watching a Kansas City game inside the game.
Yeah, I mean
that would bother the Raiders fan. I don't care.
And maybe that's the real America's team.
Kansas City.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, and at this point they are for sure.
And they're extremely marketable
and pretty likable. I know you don't want to like them, and I know Denver.
No, I get it. Listen,
like,
I'm 100% with you. For a team that's everywhere, they haven't worn me out yet.
Yeah, they haven't turned that corner because we even got there with. Like Steph Curry was the most likable guy on the planet for like 2 years, and then he turned a corner.
Right, and everybody was mad.
Right, everybody was mad.
The chewing on the mouthpiece, and he's ruining the game by shooting those crazy
Right.
shots. Have you seen my kids warm up? They try to hit 35. Ah, man, be a better coach.
Yeah,
That ain't Curry's fault.
Be a better coach, be a better parent. That's not his fault. Do your job, okay?
1 of 11. Do your 1 of 5.
Yeah, right. Just do your job. No, it's.
By the way, my
super
youth head
likable.
coach, I
Yeah.
think he just sent me like a passive aggressive. I don't know if he's being serious or not.
You got a little snark coming through on a Monday morning.
Yeah, I may need to have to talk to old John.
You need to set him straight a little bit.
Yeah, so we were getting worked out on by one particular player yesterday.
Okay.
And I didn't make any wholesale changes defensively. I just was like, hey, man, we got to play better.
Yeah.
How would you read this?
Okay.
All right, listeners, you ready for this?
Let's do it. Let's do a little dialect.
So
here.
this is the text.
Dissect. That's
This
not
is the
dialect.
text from John. He goes, well played, sir. I've been wondering the entire game and about an hour afterwards. Why didn't we have player blank follow number 9 around? It finally hit me on the way home. You were doing it on purpose. We needed those guys to have to play better. It's the only way you'll learn is to do it correctly. Masterfully done.
Oh, I wouldn't take that weird.
Are you?
I don't know him though. Like on face value,
He's the guy that wanted to fight me over my Beatles take.
that they were bad.
I said they were overrated.
They're not overrated. They might not be for you, but they're not overrated.
They're overrated.
No, they're not.
Okay, I don't want you mad again. Like
It's fine.
Harburg, Tua, Lawrence,
If they're
Rizak.
not, if they're not for you,
And I'm
that's-
getting it. It's a quarterback thing.
If they're not for you, it's fine. But they're not overrated.
Okay, like you're not the right guy to be talking to me about levity here.
What do you mean?
Because you're nuts.
No.
You're like trying to give me like perspective on managing my emotions.
I'm very grounded.
Oh, right, right. Do you think he was being snarky?
I wouldn't have taken it snarky, but I don't know him.
So during the game, I heard him say out loud. Now he's the head coach, so I let him do his thing, and he's crazy, right? He goes, sick and tired of seeing number 9 making plays out here. We gonna do something about that?
Okay.
Didn't say a word. What I wanted to say was, I'm sick and tired of our quarterbacks not being able to play catch.
Fair.
But I didn't.
Sure. That would have been snarky.
So 24 hours later, you think he's not messing with me?
No, that seems like, because I'm guessing it worked out.
So
eventually it got fixed.
And here's the thing. You want the funny thing is
Yeah.
the number 9 that he's talking about, he used to play for us.
Okay.
And I cheer for him because
So there's probably a frustration on his part that a kid that used to play for you is now tearing you up a little bit.
The kid that we're talking about, Kingston, he's a perfect example of what happens if you just stay in the lab. Because
just keep working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's really good.
Yeah.
And I felt like they used to get mad at me sometimes when I played him so much when we had him, because you could see he's a really good kid. He's a little emotional, but he was new, right?
Sure.
He was new to that caliber. And so I wanted to see him do well. That didn't have anything to do with him working out on us last night or yesterday. Like, he just puts in work. They had a really good quarterback.
Yeah.
He's a really good receiver. It's not like I said, hey, I want him to ball out at our expense.
Because I like him.
I simply said, stop undercutting posts. If you're going to undercut a ball and you gamble, you better come up 7-11.
Yeah.
How about just do it my way, though? Stay on the top shoulder. Don't undercut those things. They kept trying to undercut it.
It's one of those, if you take a shot, don't miss.
I had
Right?
one of my favorite players yesterday had a buckle break. This is his right arm, and he's coming off he's arguably one of the toughest little guys I should go to his school today. I think I'm gonna go see Grant. So he smacked a guy kind of. It wasn't late, but it was a little unnecessary.
Okay,
right?
borderline.
He was cleaning up the pile. And so he's jogging off the field, and he doesn't want to like admit that he's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling like he's a
tough kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like he is an absolute wood layer, right? Like dude brings drama.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a little guy, but I love him. And he never wants to let me know when something's bothering him because he's a high volume snaps guy. And he goes, Grant, I said, you good? He couldn't talk. And I immediately thought of when Caleb broke his collarbone. He never said a word.
Yeah.
He just was like, he just wanted to go sit down. So I was like, oh shoot, my tummy's doing cartwheels. And he goes, I said, you good? He said, I can't move my hand. Give me a sec. and his wrist was broke. All right. Like, it's like, what is going on? But I think my coach is kind of being passive aggressive. Do you think, like Coach Rhule yesterday, like or Saturday, do you think he was being passive aggressive?
Which part?
The part about
You in a good mood or what?
I'm okay. Like since you asked,
I'm in a great mood. I don't know why you think I'm cranky today.
I'm in a conundrum because I don't wear a hat ever in the building.
He dropped conundrum. Shane, when was that?
I'm in a conundrum because I don't wear a hat ever in the building.
That's like one of my favorite words. I used to work with a guy that could not use that word correctly.
Conundrum?
Nor could he say it.
Well, it's tricky.
We actually both used to work with him. I'm like, that's not how you use that word.
Yeah, it's not that big of a word.
He used to say conundrum.
That's not correct.
No, but he's super swag.
I'm not an English teacher, but
I
that's
cut
not
him some
correct.
slack. So I think he was messing with me about the whole quarterbacks thing last Saturday.
All right.
Oh, about you don't know what they are until you put them on the field?
Yeah.
Why do you think he was messing with you? Because it's true.
Because why wouldn't he just tell me what he was thinking?
I don't know if I'm answering your question, Sam.
I think
that's what I think now, Matt.
I think he did tell you what he was thinking.
No, because he wouldn't. He was super non-committal going forward.
That's because he probably. I mean, do you think he's made a decision? I don't.
I don't either.
So he told you the truth.
But this was before the game started.
I don't think he's made a decision before or after. Do you think what happened against Louisiana Tech changed his mind?
Good question. At what point would you be willing to say, "Hey, you know what?
We were wrong"?
Yeah, that's what I said last week.
Yeah, because that's the $1 million question.
Yeah, but he's also the same guy that just said, hey, situationally, maybe I would have done some things different in fall camp versus our defense.
Yeah.
So he's clearly a dude that's processing real time.
Willing to reevaluate. You know what that sounds like?
What?
A conversation for tomorrow.
Because
we're out of time.
Is it over?
Conundrum.
Conundrum.
That's the conundrum of the day.
Ding dong.
More Benning and Lulla for you tomorrow on
Holy
Hurrdat Sports
smokes.
Radio.